Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women Inspire 2022. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to all our members, guests, and panelists. My name is Aoife, and I will be your MC today. First of all, I would like to once again welcome each and every one of you for making time available to celebrate these wonderful and inspiring women. International Women's Day is a major day of global celebration for the economic, political, and social achievement of women past, present, and future. Acknowledging the contribution of women is essential to realizing true equality and respect in our homes, our workplace, and society as a whole. We want to make the women who have achieved so many great things of the past proud, the women of the present inspired and encouraged, and the women of the future envisioned. The Women Inspire 2022 Forum focuses on women that have advanced Canada's trade and economic development landscapes and also celebrates inspiring women in Canada that have distinguished themselves in the business and trade sphere. Our audience is so excited to have each panelist, women pioneers in their respective trades, giving us this huge opportunity to be able to have these conversations with you. To all our participants and audience, this is a live information session. You will have the opportunity to ask a few questions, and after the session, due to the time, we'll provide more information today and we'll be able to engage with you again. If you would like to ask a question, please leave them in our questions and answer chat box below. Our organizers will pick them from there. Our team will also address some of your questions as we go along and add resources that you need through the general chat box on all broadcast links. I also encourage you to share the YouTube link with all your groups, your associations, your friends, even your enemies, so that they can take advantage of this session with all these esteemed women today. In our midst, we have women whose stories inspire us on all fronts. We definitely want to hear from them all. I will now pass it over to Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade, who is the president and CEO of CASA Foundation, the convener of Women's Inspire. So let's give it up for Dr. Olutoyin.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ife. It's such a joy to be here again this morning. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for joining us. I say happy International Women's Day. And I bring you very warm greetings from the Governing Council and the board members of CASA Foundation. It's such a beautiful morning to celebrate women who inspire us all from all sectors. It's a great honor to welcome you all today. First, we want to acknowledge our guests of honor. From the government sector, we have members of Parliament, members of the Canadian Parliament, the Honorable Greg Fergus, who is a parliamentary assistant to the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, with us today. The Honorable Helena Jackson, Minister of the Federal Economic Development Council for the Southern Ontario. The Honorable Rachel Valdez, who is also a member of the Canadian Parliament, and the Mayor of Mississauga, Her Worship Bonnie Crombie. We also want to welcome all our speakers, esteemed speakers, carefully selected from vertical industry sectors who will be speaking to us today. And we know for sure we have a great opportunity to learn from the shared experiences of all of them all. Today, to all the esteemed ladies in the room who have become our friends, our mentors, our support ecosystem. They've provided ecosystems, they've become our ecosystem of support over the years, over the months, particularly during the pandemic. I welcome you all today. It's such a joy to have you all here with us. We celebrate you all today, and we do celebrate you, the value that you have shared with us, the value you bring to the table. As a matter of fact, there's another school of thought that shared with us in the course of this week as we began the celebration of the International Women's Day, that women do not just bring value to the table, they are actually the table, and so they need to be at the table. And so I welcome you all today. First, we must be thankful that by providential help, we have survived the pandemic, and we have come this far. And secondly, we have to celebrate because there's always a huge opportunity to learn from the session and to restart whatever was locked down or whatever we've lost during the pandemic. If you ever wondered what it means to be locked down or to be Zoom bombed, in the last 25 months, these past months would have actually taught you a few lessons, including some concepts that our professors taught us in college, whether you were taught to think outside the box, or on the edge of the box, or around the box. I am not sure what worked for you in the last few months, but I do believe that a lot of women were able to keep their businesses afloat. Some pivoted, some went into mergers, some started their e-commerce business with distribution of products from the trunks of their cars, from their basements. But what's important is that some also got their dream jobs, some got super appointments, and of course, many businesses closed. What is important at the end of the day, if you're listening to me today, is that the big deal is that we're all alive and we have survived the pandemic, and so we can try again. The best place to start, in our own opinion, is the digital market, because that's what is trending right now. So how we are there. We're not just there as decorative pieces, we are really making the difference. And despite the challenges, women in business, most of whom have struggled with funding, struggled with financing, have continued to do great things. The learning points are immense, and I will mention two. The fact that it's never too late to learn, the fact that it's generally said that necessity is the mother of invention. However, to learn new things, we must first unlearn. According to Alvin Toffler, the 21st century literate, is that one who is not just the person that hasn't gone to school, but the person that fails to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And so we need to ditch outdated skills and techniques and diversify our skill set. We need to embrace technology, reinvent ourselves to run businesses successfully. The days of floppy disks are gone. We need to find allies, and we need to find partners and collaborators. And so today, I just want to welcome our 20 inspiring speakers as we present them to you today. You have a whole lot to learn from them, and we believe that they will be sharing insights that you will find useful in the journey of life. So today I welcome you all. I welcome all our speakers, the ambassadors with us, the diplomats, our professors from the academic sector, and all the people from government. We thank you all for joining us today. And thank you so much for listening. At this point, I will be introducing the keynote, our welcome keynote speaker. And the welcome keynote speaker at this session today, the first one, is the Honorable Greg Fergus. The Honorable Greg Fergus is the Parliamentary Assistant to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, and he'll be welcoming us today and sharing a few insights with us on this great occasion. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Olutoye, and I do appreciate your opening remarks. And before I begin mine, I'd like to recognize that I'm coming to you from the unceded territory of the Algonquin people, the Anishinaabe Nation. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to join you. Happy Women's Day and happy International Women's Day, happy International Women's Month for everyone. I know I'm a little late on the day, but just by a couple. This is really an incredible opportunity that you've set forward for us by having this session to be able to talk about, to celebrate women, to celebrate their contributions. But it's also an opportunity for us to know, or for us to recognize that as a society, what we need to do to make women feel empowered, safe, equal, and to give them the opportunities, truly all the opportunities, to be able to completely fulfill their contributions to Canada and to the world. I have to admit, I'm a little intimidated by participating in today, because I can see amongst the people who we have on the panel some exceptional folks I'd like to first recognize my colleagues from the House of Commons, Minister Jacek, Richie Valdez, and I believe there was a third, but I missed that person's name. But to all my colleagues from the House of Commons, it's a real pleasure to be here and sharing the stage with you. Also, I'd like to say hello to an old friend, Her Worship Bonnie Crombie, Mayor of Mississauga. But there are also some other women who are on this call who, and Dr. Olitoyan, when you talked about, what this pandemic has done, I think it really tested the mettle of women in this country. And there are two women in particular, Donna Walwyn, who has done exceptional work for our community and for women in general, but also Christine Williams, who is also online here. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were taking a look at what the effect was of the shutdown of the economy for health reasons, to help people from a health-wise perspective, we saw immediately the difficulties that were imposed on businesses and entrepreneurs who are from women business entrepreneurs, but also Black women. And Christine was asked by another great woman, Mary Yang, the Minister for International Trade, to be part of a process which led to the creation of the Federation of African Canadian Economics, FACE, which is really part of the Black Entrepreneurship Program. And it was because of her great experience in the banking sector, along with others, that made that contribution to allow us to launch this program. And I'm really grateful to her. I don't think enough is said about the contributions of what so many women behind the scenes have done to making sure that as we took the steps to get ourselves out of the pandemic, that we made sure that no one was left behind, especially women, especially Black women, and especially Black women entrepreneurs. So I'm really grateful for her contribution. When I'll try to, I know I'm taking a little bit of time, but I think it's important to phrase this. The reason why I think it's so important for us to, with open eyes, recognize and to support women in today's context, especially women in business, is because when we take a look at our history, when we take a look at all of human history, quite often we think that history is something that is set in concrete, set in amber, doesn't change. The history that we learn today is the same history that we learned 100 years ago, except that there's 100 more years of facts which have come in. But if you'd learned history 100 years ago, if you'd learned history 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we noticed that there was no recognition of the contributions of women that have made to humankind for millennia. What history really is not something that's stuck in amber. It's very amorphous. It's flexible. We see in history what we value today. And now that we're seeing more and more of the role of women in creating the society that we have and their contribution to try to change the society that we've ended up having, that is a reflection of how we value women today. And hopefully it's a reflection of how we are going to track for where women are in the future. To me, this is key. We need to understand that when we took a look back in history and we saw no examples of women, that just didn't make any sense. Women make up half the population. It's ridiculous to think that great events did not have the support, activity, and planning done by women. And if it does point that out, it does point out how unbalanced and unhealthy our societies have been. But we know better today. We should know better today. And this is the reason why I think by having this session and this full day of activities, we are making sure that not only right now, not only as we, to that end, I think it's really key for us to support the activities that we're doing here today. I'm very glad to bring you greetings on behalf of the Prime Minister and of our Parliament, and I wish you the best of luck, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the results and supporting the activities that CASA is doing. Thank you very much. Have a great session.
Thanks so much for that warm welcome, and thank you very much, Minister Fergus, for your comments. My name is Wendy Sukier, and I lead the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. I'm the founder of the Diversity Institute, and I'm joining you from the traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, the Chippewa, and the Anishinaabe people here in Toronto. I just wanted to thank again Dr. Olatulen for her work, not just in putting this together with her team, but in work over a number of years to really advance all women entrepreneurs, but also focusing specifically on underrepresented groups. And today we have an opportunity to reflect on some of the challenges which we've heard about that women have faced and continue to face: the wage gap, underrepresentation, the crushing burden of childcare, but also some of the advances that have been made. And certainly I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to share the stage with members of government, because certainly while COVID did present enormous challenges, it also precipitated many important changes. And when we think about investments that have been made in women entrepreneurs, in the Black entrepreneurship strategy, and certainly in a national childcare program, we know that we are rebuilding better. I also wanted to really set the panel up by reinforcing some of the comments that Olu made about the silver lining, about the stories of resilience and innovation that we have also seen as a result of the pandemic. And so today I'm thrilled to be joined by three inspiring women leaders who, as you've heard, have already made considerable difference in helping to rebuild better. First off, Christine Williams, who you heard about, one of the driving forces behind the Federation for African Canadian Economics. And along also the chair of Centennial College. Christine Nakamura, who is the Vice President of the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada and an important part of the West Women's Ecosystem, and Donna Walwyn, who is the Managing Director of the Fairway Group, will all join us today. I'm hoping panelists. Okay, fantastic. So my first question, we don't have a lot of time. I know we could talk all day about some of these issues, but you know, in some respects, Canada is a global leader in many areas. And you know, from the Employment Equity Act 40 years ago to the new 50-30 challenge, the country has been committed to addressing more than just gender in terms of opportunities in leadership roles and so on. But it's certainly not perfect. And we know that for every challenge women face generally, racialized, Black, Indigenous, women with disabilities, and those who are 2S LGBTQ2+, face even more challenges. So I wonder if maybe Christine, you could kick us off and talk. Sorry, Christine Nakamura, to be clear. If you could kick us off and talk a little bit about how gender and intersectionality interact in your experience and your perspective on what the issues are that we need to address in order to drive business development and growth. And others will pitch in.
Okay,
after.
So can everybody hear me? Just in case, test the microphone. Okay, great. So thank you very much for that introduction, Wendy. It's definitely a pleasure to be a part of this inspiring session today. So thank you very much to the organizers for including me in this. I'd like to just, first of all, address the issue of the gender diversity aspect of your question, Wendy. You know, Mr. Fergus already mentioned it, but over 50% of the world's population are female. You know, it's comprised of women. And the same, that goes for Canada or Ontario, the stats are very similar. So my question is, why wouldn't we, for businesses, governments, anything, but especially in businesses, why wouldn't we have 50% of leadership positions occupied by women? I can't still understand in this day and age why we struggle to place women in leadership roles, whether in private or public sectors or in civil society. And if I can go into the dimensions of diversity, intersectionality, in terms of cultural diversity, according to the 2016 census that we finally did again, the long census, almost a quarter of our population identified as being non-white or BIPOC, representatives of the Black, Indigenous, or people of color. In Ontario, the stats are even higher. We're looking at, I think, over 28% have identified as being BIPOC. So, and these percentages may be lower than they actually are because this is only based on those who responded to the census. So does their leadership in business, governments, post-secondary education reflect this percentage? I don't think so, not yet, but we have to get there. Canada, as we all know, is a nation created by immigrants from people, and my family were immigrants as well. My grandparents came to Canada on the West Coast. So we have, you know, we're created by immigrants from around the world. So our leadership needs to reflect the diversity of our employees and our population more globally. If you want to grow your business, and I'm going to go into the parts for business aspect now. And, you know, if you really want to grow your business in Canada, your business products and services that you offer as businesses, you need to reflect on the tastes and needs of the people it serves. And if our population is almost a quarter non-Caucasian or non-white, then we need to ensure that the things we do in business reflect what is needed by our clientele. You know, marketing approaches should reflect the approaches that work for the cultural makeup of our clients. And I'll say a little bit here that I've been leading women-only business missions to all parts of Asia, for example. And in those delegations that we've selected, we've ensured that we get a diversity, reflects Canadian population. So while we're picking the best and the brightest from our applications across Canada, we ensure that our delegations are made up of the cultural makeup of this country. So whether we're talking about gender or cultural diversity of our population, BIPOC, informed decisions can only be made if the leadership really understands and lives the needs and tastes of the diverse customer base that we serve. So when exporting goods or services, businesses are told, we do in any event in our missions, in our pre-mission training, we advise our delegates that you should localize the product or service by engaging locals to help you further develop the product to meet the tastes of the market and to ensure that the marketing strategies are based on the needs and cultural aspects of the market that you're working in. We should be making use of the huge diaspora in Canada, and I don't think we're there yet. This is something that we have as a resource in Canada that many of the other economies or nations that are generally homogeneous don't have that advantage. We have representation from all countries around the world, just about. So, and we haven't utilized that diaspora in Canada to diversify into the growth markets that they represent. But without the relevant representation of gender and the non-white population at the leadership level, businesses will not reach parity. which in turn will impact the success level of our businesses. So to ensure successful international market diversification, which is our mantra, and we're pushing our women entrepreneurs to do that, diversify into the growth markets outside of North America, use the diaspora, engage the diaspora to access the international markets. This is a wonderful resource. They have the language, cultural, and the business know-how in the destination markets to ensure that there's going to be a level of success for the businesses. So I'll just stop there, Wendy. How's that?
Thanks so much. And you raised so many important points. You know, Canada is a country of immigrants. I'm the child of a refugee. 3/4 of the population in the GTA are either newcomers, immigrants, or children of newcomers and immigrants. And I think that is our competitive advantage on a global stage. I wanted to turn to Donna for a minute. The research that we've done on leadership, and Christine really emphasized how important it is to see it so you can be it. When we look at research on leadership, we know women are underrepresented in C-suites and on corporate boards. And in fact, when we analyze data from the GTA, even though half the population is racialized, we see that white women outnumber racialized women by a factor of 12 to 1. And that's why we're so pleased that the federal government has really insisted on including other dimensions of diversity, not just gender, in its legislation and the 50/30 challenge. We also know that when you further disaggregate that racialized category across Canada of 1,600 corporate board members, there are exactly 13 Black men and women. And you've broken through so many ceilings and so many areas. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how we can progress in the absence of role models, what the role of mentorship, sponsorship, and other kinds of support are in really ensuring that leadership reflects the people who are being led.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Christine, for your comments. I think one of the things, and let me pick up a little bit from the last set of comments. One of the things that we have learned through this whole pandemic is both how small and how big the world is. And that, as we connected, as we use different methods of connecting, it also inspires us to look to, as Christine was saying, to different markets and being able to expand to tap into those markets. So I wanted to pick up on that. And it's something that personally, sort of my personal experience certainly has reflected that. In the last month, I've been to 4 different countries. Sitting outside of, speaking to you from outside of Canada now, and it's just something that I think is going to become more and more prevalent as we look at the globe as a marketplace, as potential customers, as opposed to just Canada or North America. So look. Dr. Suke, you have been at the forefront of leading on this empirical evidence, this body of empirical evidence that we have, that we don't see the representation that we want to see, that we do see that women and diverse-led businesses fail, and in identifying the reasons for that failure. You mentioned sponsorship, but also access to capital. It's a huge issue. Patronage and sponsorship, as well as I guess people identify sort of a lack of business skills. And I want to really pick up on a couple of those. And by way of very brief background, I practiced law for 20 years before I jumped off of a business cliff and decided that I was going to become an entrepreneur, and didn't have sort of those business skills. Lots of other skills that I developed through practice, but didn't have sort of the traditional business skills. But was fortunate to have a number of other points of penetration which led to success. I have never, in all the time that I've spoken, referred to Kim Kardashian, but I felt I'm going to this time. Some of you may have heard her remarks yesterday or the day before about advice that she was giving to women in business. And the advice that she gave was, I have the best advice for women in business. Get your expletive up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days. And I had a number of reactions to that statement. Foremost among them was, she doesn't know the people in this room, that she has never met the formidable, like the will of so many of the women that I know and interact with. But it also highlighted for me, and I'm sure for others, that even women, as we are having this conversation, don't always get it, don't always get the fact that there are so many systemic barriers and underlying reasons why people do not succeed, whether it is in business, whether it is in being able to break through those glass ceilings to get to C-suite, to be able to sit on boards, all of those sorts of things, and the blindness of certain of a sector of society, and again, sometimes even other women, in failing to recognize that their own access to some of the determinants of success, like access to capital, access to patronage, access to networks, leave them in positions of privilege that can allow them to make statements like this boldly, say that it's if you just work hard enough, that's enough, which we all know is not true. I want to talk about access to capital a little bit, because I feel like that is one of the biggest barriers that women entrepreneurs and women-led businesses, and then of course it gets exacerbated when you talk about intersectionality and you talk about women-led businesses where the woman is Black or diverse in any other way. And the fact that, look, the reality is that the traditional financial institutions, your banks, the lenders, that we cannot, there is an absolute learning curve that has to happen as we look at these traditional financial institutions, to recalibrate the basis on which they underwrite loans, to recalibrate what it means to assess credit worthiness, to rethink whether or not somebody is a good risk, because we know for a fact that all of those things, all of those factors that are used are themselves rooted in a patriarchy, in biases that are sort of built into the system. And it's going to take a while for us to do that. In the interim, one of the things that has given me hope is looking to the beginnings of some of our financial institutions in Canada being willing to fund programs through different organizations, which look to, for example, provide grants to entrepreneurs, while at the same time providing wraparound services, which begin to build capacity, those business skills, which then allow these businesses and women-led businesses to be better positioned to actually access more traditional capital sources. Also looking at some of the organizations that have developed and are working hard within the community, one of them which I'm involved with, Black Opportunity Fund, looking to replicate some of what we see in the US, where you have, for example, venture capitalists who aren't as predatory, who actually have as an underlying philosophy a bit of philanthropy and looking to improve social outcomes and social economic outcomes by saying, look, we do want to make money, but we're not going to take 40% or 50% of your business before we lend you money. We do want to make money, but we're not going to limit our investment to businesses which are going to guarantee us, an ROI of 20%. we do want to make money, but we're not going to limit it to just tech, because that's sort of like what everybody's doing right now. We're looking to other things. And so I think that some of those things are going to take us along, and we're going to have to do it privately. Hopefully there'll be some government impetus to do it. But I think that just waiting for governments and traditional financial institutions to begin to solve is just going to take way too long. I have so many more comments, but I feel like I'm going to make one more, and then I'm going to stop, and so that we can move on. I think that patronage, sponsorship is so closely linked to access to capital. And that whole concept of being able to rely on others to speak your name, to say your name in rooms and at tables where you may not exist or may not have access to at the time, those are the sorts of things that sort of patronage and sponsorship, which allow you to be considered, for example, or to be nominated for, put forward for a board position. Despite what we see in terms of public postings, we know that a lot of public sort of paying board positions really are internally sourced first. We know that you need that sort of extra nudge if you're hoping to sort of move to C-suite, and cultivating that sponsorship and patronage is sometimes difficult. And the final comment that I will make is mentorship, patronage, sponsorship is so huge that very often if you say to somebody, hey, will you be my mentor? Will you be my sponsor? It's such a big ask that you might get the no. But if you start smaller and say, hey, look, here's where I'm at. How did you move from this to this? That people are very often, and in my experience, almost exclusively willing to give you that, here's how I moved from, and then it grows into something it can grow into something that looks more like what you intended in terms of your mentorship or sponsorship or patronage, but you start with those bite-sized pieces, appeal to their ego just a little bit. You've been so successful, how did you move from here to here to do that? I'm going to stop there because I know we've got a lot more to cover in very little time. Thank you.
Yeah, time, unfortunately, is the scarcest resource along with capital.
Yes.
And it's so important that you did stress capital, because we know that it's not just a question of access to capital for small businesses, but if you want generational wealth, and if you look specifically at some communities, it's access to capital for student loans. It's access to capital for mortgages. We just did a study for the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and when we look at anti-Black racism and problems in the real estate market, it's primarily financial institutions where the barriers are. So the idea that we're looking not just at one thing, but an interconnected ecosystem, I think is so very important. And that's why I'd like to turn now to Christine Williams, because she's done some real heavy lifting in trying to address some of those systemic. Christine, from your perspective, can you talk about what's needed to create more inclusion?
Well, it's when you talk about, I keep hearing an echo, so I hope you can hear me. It's, transformation is really tough. And it's not really about being a role model, because a role model is just not a job title. I think it's really a way of being. And I have found that leaders, when they step up to really see gaps in supporting their teams and individuals, they become role models in a way. And these are passionate people. They have a clear sense of direction, and they do have the ability to share it. So I've found that individuals that are mentors or role models, they foster a high level of self-awareness, and they're decisive, they have positive impact on the ability to innovate? Well, they have a strong character. They're confident, they're knowledgeable, as you heard Donna talk about, asking just for the bite-sized piece. But also they demonstrate a willingness to help people and help out. They are not necessarily seeking accolades, but they find a high level of satisfaction in developing people and achieving outcomes. So to be successful, leaders have to focus their time on also teaching some of the values and the principles, and training others how to think, thereby raising the collective intelligence. Especially in the days now, in our current ebb and flow of workers leaving organizations, as they call it, the great age of, or the age of the great resignation, it becomes even more important that companies invest in people by enabling them, by enabling a learning culture, as someone talked about, being able to learn and unlearn, because that is part of the recipe for success. So highly focused on people, they channel their creativity, their ideas, they promote collaboration in problem solving, and optimistic. Hardworking, someone said. Hardworking might not be the name in the digital age, but hardworking and being highly ethical. And when the going gets tough, they absolutely show commitment to their self, but also to others. I think, as you heard, the pace of regulation, the pace of disruption is accelerating in many businesses. Any sector that you look at, we're living in a world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And organizations need individuals who are engaged, employees who are engaged to produce and support the creation of new products and services and processes, so that everyone is on the same level. They have the shared purpose, the same shared purpose, and the responsibility around innovation or moving forward. And that is where I think is another recipe for the success. But role models have to be empathetic as well, and they have to be humble. You want me to leave it there?
I would love to listen to you all day. And, you know, I think we've got 3 great role models here who are both humble and impressive. I hate to say it, but we have exactly 4 minutes left in this amazing session. I would love to go all day, but I wonder, you know, you've got a lot of decision makers and influencers in this audience today. And we've talked a lot about different initiatives that are important, things that have to change. We've seen where there's some real glimmers of hope. But I wonder if you could each take just 1 minute and highlight 2 or 3 things that you think we need to prioritize moving forward in order to advance gender parity and increased inclusion for all, but especially for women. And I'll start with you, Christine Nakamura.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to be very brief because in my view, I said it at the beginning in my opening remarks, but clearly you need that leadership. The leadership has to reflect the people that you serve. And so if we're talking about over 50% women, you have to make sure that women are in the leadership team. You have to ensure that the cultural representation of your clients, your business partners, or whatever, or even your employees, are reflected in that leadership. Because unless that leader is inclusive and understanding of the needs of the population, your clients, whatever, you're never going to get there. You're not going to succeed. So, I'm a woman of color as well, but I didn't come to this realization how important this is, except maybe in the last decade or so. And so now the work I'm doing is to ensure that we get women represented at the decision-making level, because if you have a leader, inspirational, inclusive leader, you're going to be able to attract the talent that's going to make your company successful, right? So I'm going to stop there. And one other thing is necessity drives change, drives innovation. I mean, the pandemic was a terrible thing that we all faced, but it also brought out the brightest and passionate people. I know of so many women entrepreneurs now that I've met over the last couple of years that have been successful, not only in surviving, but thriving their businesses. So necessity, unfortunately, bad things like the pandemic has helped some of the best women come forward. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Christine. Donna, last words.
Intentionality and execution. Like, we've got to be intentional about about saying we are going to increase the representation and then execute on it. Instead of, it's not good intentions anymore. It's action on that. Empowered women empower women. And so there is a bit of self-reliance as well, as we help each other and grow our internal, our network, as CASA Foundation does, our own ecosystem to empower each other.
Thank you so much. And the final word goes to you, Christine.
So I would thank you very much, Wendy. I believe that it starts from the top of any organization. And if we can, right now, organizations are focused on ESG. And part of it, the social piece, is all around people. And if we can understand that if that is driven at that level, and at the same time from women leadership, with women leadership at the table, for not only the diversity of thought and all the other things that we get from it, but also the inclusion and the innovation, because it's the business case. At the end of the day, if we can prove the business case for this, and it has been proven, the research is there, without a doubt, then organizations need to start changing their culture to include women, BIPOC, if you want to use that language, and women, and definitely creating that cultural change that is absolutely required, because girls and young girls are looking on. And if we want to see that sea change and that change from the bottom right up to the top, we have to attack it at all levels, from the bottom right up to, and the top of the organization needs to work it down as well. So I hope that captures my passion around this whole topic of women and leadership.
It's a big job, but we can do it. And I think that, you've really highlighted the fact change is needed on multiple levels. Leadership, though, I would agree with you, is one of the most important things, because, as I said before, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And who's at the top inspires others to achievement. So again, I think we've seen some really some encouraging commitments come out of the pandemic. And I think, to Donna's point, we need to make sure people put their money where their mouths are and really hold them accountable. So thank you on behalf of the organizers and myself for a fabulous panel. And I'll turn it back
Thank you
to CASA. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you very much. What a great panel. Shout out to all our panelists and also our amazing moderator, Wendy. Thank you again. I've learned a lot. Our next panel is moderated by Surana Sandy, the CEO of Skills for Change. And the speakers are Brown Warwick, the co-founder plus consultant of Lucio Consulting, Inc., Candice Kochapau, the founder plus executive director of Developing Young Leaders of Today Tomorrow, and Kelly Defogan, founder plus executive director at Afropolitician. These women are being featured this year as women founders and business owners that have survived and will pivot their business post-pandemic. So I'll hand it over you to Sarana. I'm very excited to hear what these women have to say.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sarana Sandy and CEO of Skills for Change. And it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, CASA Foundation, for inviting me. Today, we're looking at how diverse representation of women founders and entrepreneurs. But before we get started, I would like to start by honoring the land that we're on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and Métis peoples. These treaties and other agreements include the One Dish with One Spoon, One Pond Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. And so we are all treaty people. So many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. I'd like to also acknowledge those of us who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. So before we get started, just brief, little preamble here. Every year on March 8th, we recognize the social and economic, cultural and political achievements of women. And this year's theme, Break the Bias, calls for a gender equal world, breaking the chain of bias and stereotypes and discrimination against women. In particular, the COVID-19 pandemic disproportionately impacted women, leading to increased barriers and biases, whether it's employment inequity, inequity in distribution of power, lack of access to resources. And this has been especially the case for women from diverse backgrounds, immigrant, racialized communities. But despite these challenges, there have been many advancements in empowerment and equality made globally, especially in 2020 and 2021. And we're going to have a little bit of insight into how some of the panelists today have really breaking barriers. So as we reflect on the fact that, there was 262 legal reforms to advance equality in 69 countries, 101,000 rural women gained life-changing assets, technology, and tools to launch businesses and develop their communities. 590 partner women groups mobilized COVID-19 responses in 50 countries. And 98,700 gender-based violence survivors gained justice and recovery services. So all the statistics from the UN Women's Organization, it feeds into the work that our amazing group of panelists have been doing in creating businesses and improving their communities and communities across Canada. So today joining me, we have Bronwyn Warwick, founder and consultant, Lucia Consulting Inc., and Candice Kopicha, as mentioned, Developing Young Leaders of Today, Tomorrow, founder, and Kelly Dufresne, founder and executive director, Afropolitan. So Bronwyn, Candice, Kelly, reflecting on Women's History Month and International Women's Day and your work and experiences as entrepreneurs and leaders, I'm going to start with Candice. How has your vision and purpose mission shaped your business journey so far? What are some insights you can give us today?
Thank you so much, Sarana, and what a pleasure to join this esteemed panel today. I'm very excited to share this journey with all of you. I would say that my vision, mission, and purpose has been shaped by my lived experience of social exclusion, dating back to my educational journey as a Master of Social Work student, and really interested in learning about the public policy development space, particularly relating to precarious work and who is given the right and opportunity to shape policy across the country, and how those policies trickle down and impact communities and individuals. And so the work that I do through Developing Young Leaders of Tomorrow Today really center around making sure that we look at these policies that are being developed and how they're impacting people, and really situating it in the nuanced narrative of Black communities, and how Black communities are engaging with education, and how education is engaging with Black communities, and then what the outcomes are for employment, and the types of employment that we have access to. And carrying that narrative forward, my work really has been about advocacy. It's about intentional inclusion. It's about developing allyship and connecting across sectors to make sure that we are leveraging the opportunities that exist, the resources that are available, and making sure that there's an equity lens that is brought to all of those different pieces, and making sure that we're prioritizing our communities as best we can, because in a lot of ways, social exclusion has caused the disenfranchisement of racialized communities. And my work is about making sure that the priorities of Black communities in particular, young Black professionals, those priorities get pushed to the front in mainstream conversations about resource allocation.
Thank you, Candice. And this is so important, especially now as we try to move forward, the really devastating impact of COVID-19 on racialized communities and Black communities, especially Black youth. Your work is so critical at this particular point. Bronwyn, tell us a little bit about your vision, purpose, and mission, and how that shaped your leadership experience thus far.
Thanks. And yeah, once again, thanks so much to everyone for organizing this. It's really wonderful to be here. And I am calling in from Vancouver today. So before I start, I did just want to also honor and acknowledge the land of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples here. I'm a co-founder of Luceo Consulting, an entirely women-owned sustainability consulting firm based out of Vancouver. And so our purpose and vision is to promote and enhance sustainability and resilience of our communities and world. And we a lot of times work on civil infrastructure projects or with organizations to promote sustainability. So the lens that we're always trying to come in with is, how can we leave this world, these projects that are going to be around for 50 to 100 years, better than when we arrived? And, I think when I reflected on this question, I thought, well, if you have a true purpose in what you're doing, you end up becoming an educator and an advocate for that. So even though I am not an education consultant, I am what looks like, a consultant that works with engineers and architects. What I actually end up doing is a lot of education, because sometimes people say, why is there a sustainability consultant in the room? What does that mean? What does sustainability mean? And to us, sustainability covers 3 pillars: economic, social, and environmental. I heard somebody talking about ESG earlier. That's another way that it's framed often. And so every day I end up educating somebody about sustainability, whether it is in a small email and I'm just explaining a nuanced difference between something, or whether I'm talking to a client about how their project could impact the communities it surrounds or the natural habitat that it borders. I think that education is so important in your purpose, and whether it's connecting people to resources or doing it yourself, if you're truly going back to that vision, mission, values, and purpose to ground yourself, I think that's what really allows you to shape your business and bring you back to your passion, so that you're constantly driven by that. The only other thing I'll say is that I always try to go back to those things, the mission, vision, values, and purpose, when making hard decisions. I think as a small business owner, founder, startup, whatever, you have things flying at you all the time. You might feel like you're constantly just putting out fires. And when you really have to make a hard decision, it's important, so important to slow down and just reframe, where are you, reground yourself, and go back to why you do what you do. So yeah, thank you.
Brian, thank you for that. And thank you for centering the criticality of sustainable development, especially as we continue to work towards the SDGs and transforming our world. And we see the impact greatly more exaggerated through COVID, but we are sort of at that tipping point, right? We are at that planetary boundary. So thank you for working on that. Kelly, what about you in vision, mission, purpose, shaping, your leadership entrepreneurial journey thus far?
Right. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here today. So I'm Kelly, and I'm the founder of Afropolitan Canada. We are a bilingual organization based here in Toronto. We support people of African and Caribbean diaspora in building professional and entrepreneurial skills. Listen, Afropolitan Canada, in terms of mission and vision, it was, born out of frustration. I am an immigrant, came here at the age of 15 with my mom and then my 3 siblings. She struggled to put food on the table for us. And very quickly I had to work while going to school to support her. So, with time, I realized that there weren't a lot of, at least in where I was living, not a lot of, programs designed to support in terms of financial literacy, or even, introducing, Black women to trades, because, there is that cultural element as well that, trades sometimes is not necessarily what our parents or our grandparents wanted for their kids. You needed to either be a doctor or a lawyer or anything, but using your hands and everything was not necessarily glamour. So with Afropolitan, it was really to just change that narrative, and then to break that kind of cycle in terms of, not necessarily knowing how to manage your money, or, be able to get into trades. I think one other element as well is, of Afropolitan is really able to celebrate women, Black women and women of color. Oftentimes, especially during March 8th, during the International Women's Day at the time, we will see the same woman being celebrated over and over again. And I think for us here with one of our events, it was really to put all Black women and women of color across Canada on that platform and say, you are seen. If you're an entrepreneur and you're struggling, you're seen, we're here to celebrate you. And so that is our, what we do is really to build those skills so that they can tap into the workforce. And then also to address one barrier that we don't often talk about, it is the language. Afropolitan focuses on, the Francophones as well. When we talk about Francophone entrepreneurs, they tend to sometimes not want to explore that Francophone accent and everything because it's hard. And so they tend to go towards English and then, not necessarily see that French is an asset for them as well. So we are really working on building that confidence that yes, you can be a Black Francophone entrepreneur, and you can have your website just in French. Whoever wants to buy can use Google Translate, for instance. But we really want to push that narrative that be comfortable in your skin, be comfortable in your accent, be comfortable in your language. And so, yeah, that's what we do.
Thank you, the three of you. I think it's so amazing to see that focus on community and improving through community development, the work that you're doing that has broader impact. For the last little while, especially we've looked through issues around building back better and the sheer recovery and the impact of COVID-19 on women. Various levels of government have initiatives and new platforms of promoting women entrepreneurship. And the women's advancement movement has created really a global awareness of the particular challenges that women entrepreneurs face in launching their businesses. So do you think that this focus and increased conversation has helped you get more support for your enterprises that you've started? And I want to start with you, Bronwyn.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, this was an interesting question, because I think in many ways there are a lot of great programs out there. We have definitely been able to tap into some programs, whether it's a preferred rate loan at Van City, which is the bank that we bank at for women-owned businesses, or initiatives just for networking and mentorship that I know folks have mentioned today as well. So I do think there's a lot out there. One thing I'll say is, those opportunities aren't going to come to you just because you're a women-owned business. You still really have to put yourself out there. You have to go out and find those things. And almost sometimes that can be frustrating. You feel like you're up against the world trying to get your ideas off the ground and you want to be like, oh my gosh, why isn't there someone here to help me? And all I'll say is folks will help you if you put yourself out there and really get engaged, but they're not, those opportunities aren't going to come. You're going to still have to spend a lot of time and effort navigating the different initiatives and opportunities and what's available to women entrepreneurs. And then the other part of this question, I think, is a little bit more complex, which is that just because the narrative may have changed, that does not mean that there's been a full cultural shift. We've seen the narrative change. We see all the corporations saying all the right things, maybe diversity indicators are going up. Does that mean there's inclusion? Does that mean that there's been a full cultural shift? No. We have a lot of work to do. We all have a lot of work to do. I think that, especially folks who experience intersectional marginalization, for myself, the only thing additional to being a woman that I really experience is being a young woman, but there are plenty of people who have other marginalization that they experience that changes the way that people view them. And I think that it's just, there's a lot of layers here to unpack, and we need to be able to bring one another into conversations and think critically about this. But I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to say is, yes, there's a lot out there. Does that mean that just because you can access more government initiatives, does that mean that things are equal or there's equality? No. So there's a lot of work to do. So I kind of wanted to have the positive and the negative there to where we're at.
Thank you for that. I think it's important that we don't just assume that everything works grandly because people are talking more about it. And Candice, jump in here. What about you? How have this whole changing narrative and focus impacted your business?
I mean, I 100% agree with Bronwyn, your comments there, and to take it into the nonprofit space, the narrative is there, right? Like especially relating to the dual pandemics that began in 2020, right? We had the public health pandemic, of course, but we also had the racial reckoning around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's public murders, and the piece for me around the shifting culture and narrative is that, yes, there's one thing about signing pledges and saying that we're going to do more to address social exclusion, we're going to do more for inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but there's also a sense of diversity, inclusion, and belonging, right? And so the piece for me around, all of these different programs that are being put in place, all of these different resources that are now activated, for me as a Black woman nonprofit organizational leader, what I'm not seeing, the translation that I'm not seeing happening is really that trickle down effect, if you want to put it in those terms, where everyone is feeling like we have a space and we belong in the space. And in the nonprofit sector, particularly for Black-led or B3 organizations, Black-led, Black-serving, and Black-focused organizations, the challenges that we are experiencing is access to available resources, right? So there's, the promise of funding that is supposed to go to for capacity building for organizations, for sustainability for organizations. But then when we put ourselves out there, as you're saying, Bronwyn, you sometimes have to go out and go get it. When we put ourselves out there to go and get it, institutional barriers still exist in practice, right? So in principle, there are no barriers. In practice, there are multiple barriers at the entry level, beyond the entry point, and at the executive levels, at the decision-making tables. So it's one thing for women to feel welcomed into the space. It's another thing to feel like we belong in the space, that the work that we do is essential to building community. And when you're thinking about building back better, what does that look like based on the status or the where communities are, right? We can't just use a blanket statement to say we're going to build back better and then expect that everything is just going to fall into place. Who is really expected to do the work to bring everyone up to speed so that we can look different than what history has taught us and has told us, right? And who's also contributing to shaping the narrative around our current history that we're making right now and our future history that, you know, the work that we're doing on the ground right now is contributing to, right? Those are really, you know, the stories that we really want to make sure that are being heard, right?
Thank you for that. I really want to, you know, come back to a couple of key things here. And it's just, you really, for this to make sense, for this to have impact, moving from talk to action, less performative orientation to it, and really continuing to focus on tearing down those barriers. And so, Kelly, building on that, what can you add to this conversation here?
Right. Yeah. So Bronwyn and Candice I echo everything that they've already said. I think, you know, it's important right now. I think we are in a place because for the past 2 years, you know, it was that, I will say, performative kind of surface level support. But I think that we're also in a position of calling out when this is happening. And that is something that personally with Afropolitan we've been doing, because there has been a support at one point during these past 2 years. And then it's because obviously the pandemic, and then also you know, the injustice happening here in North America and the States. And suddenly, even though we're performing, we have data to prove that we have more women getting into entrepreneurship, that we have more women learning about financial literacy than, you know, those corporations or those decision makers are dragging their feet. And so I think at this point is really to call it out, because one thing that we've learned during those the past 2 years is that when something is wrong, it's important to say it, and then to say it in writing. And I think that the fact that, for instance, for Afropolitan, when we're calling out and then saying that this is basically performative, we've had those conversations, and I think that sometimes they had to reevaluate how they were treating us or treating other non-for-profit organization. But out of this to say, you know, yes, it definitely was great to see that support. Now you question as to if it was really real, if it was just a way of just saying, okay, we're doing something. But now we're at the place where we really need to have some tangible work. And as Candice was saying, I need to feel like we're belonging here. And by doing so, in order to do that, I think we need to continue to call out organizations when things like this are happening, when things like that are happening to other organizations. We cannot just, you know, let it just sit on us and then like move to another, let's say, funding application and everything. I think that it's important to make it known that it's not okay. And then to also ask, like, what exactly is it, or what exactly is needed for us here to get to that next step?
Thank you both. You know, it's all three of you. You're right. We've had great success in sort of bringing that focus and advancing some of the issues that women face, especially women entrepreneurs. But I think, as you highlighted, the criticality of zeroing in on racialized BIPOC immigrant women face different barriers every day, or the social barriers, economic issues, wellness, et cetera, that impact their ability to launch businesses and to be successful. And so by creating equal opportunities for women, we hopefully build more equitable communities and space for people to be successful. Moving on a little bit further, Candice, because we want to talk a little bit about, you know, what can we done? What can we learn from your time navigating through COVID as a business owner? So with all the disparities that COVID-19 brought forward that we felt really hard by women and women business owners, women entrepreneurs, can you just walk us through a little case about how you survived so far? And then what's your advice for anyone starting up a business, or whose business may be struggling? What are some of your learning outcomes you want to share this morning?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Serena. So, I mean, I'm thinking back to, the start of COVID, and we're still a very young organization at Dialot. We're going to be 3 years old in June of this year. And so there's a lot, as a even though it's a nonprofit organization, it's still, considered an enterprise. And so at the beginning of COVID, we had no budget, we had no funding at all. And things were not changing. We were applying for multiple grants, as Kelly talked about, and getting turned down everywhere we went. Because at the time it was like, oh yeah, you're doing great work, but the value proposition, we're not seeing where this could be something that we really want to invest in. And that was a lot of the language, right? And so the shifts started to happen when the racial reckoning happened around June 2020. And we started to get calls from people, emails from people saying, what can we do? How can we help you? And it was individual people. It wasn't organizations per se. It was individual people saying, wow, we see the work that you're doing and we think your work is important and we want to support you. And individuals helped walk with us to create a sustainable model for delivering our programs and services. And what ended up happening in particular was the Black Diplomats Academy that is now in its second year. A couple ladies who I didn't even know them from, as in the Caribbean, you say, we don't even know them from Adam. We have no idea where they came from, but they were in the corporate space and they saw the potential. They saw my story in the Globe and Mail back in 2020, and they said, wow, this is incredible. There's nothing like this out there. We want to support you. And the Black Diplomats Academy started to build recognition from that time. The challenge that existed, and Kelly made reference to this earlier, the challenge that existed at the time was we started to have visibility. Our impact was now being focused and narrowed, and people were interested in what we were doing. But again, the translation around sustainable funding, core funding, so that we could hire staff, we could do the things that were necessary to deliver the programs and to deliver the impact, that was not present. And what we had to do was, I had to figure out how to strengthen my voice as a Black woman leader in a nonprofit space. And what that meant was I had to be brave, even going and talking to major funders, going and saying, look, you haven't welcomed us in this space. You're telling us that, the money is available for capacity building, but when we apply, you're saying, oh, wait, you don't have the history of doing this work. Oh, wait a minute, we haven't seen you do this before, or you don't quite qualify. What I have had to do, when we're talking about survival, not even thriving, just surviving. What I had to do was to call out those performative pieces, especially around nonprofit sector grant financing, calling them out to say, look, if the money is available and you're saying organizations, especially women-led, especially Black-led organizations, we want you to apply, we want to do this, this, and this for you, then your responsibility is to remove the barriers so that we can participate and we can continue to deliver impact as you're looking for, right? And so just from that journey and that experience, I'm saying now, even if we're not comfortable doing that advocacy piece, reaching out, doing some cold calling, reaching out to funders and different organizations who are well-resourced, we have to get comfortable doing those things, because if we don't, there's no one that's going to advocate for us. Everyone is looking for the sustainability of their own organization. And so for us, it's really about being able to tell our story in a way that will advance what our mission is, but will not take away from who we are just because we want to acquire funding, right? And I think my advice for those who are thinking about starting up social enterprises or whatever the case may be is really thinking about what's your center. And when you know what your center is, be willing to advocate for that work, but also be willing to know where your limit is, where you're not going to deviate so far away from your mission in order to get the resources that you need. And I think it's important for us, especially in the nonprofit space, to really be able to show what differentiates us, what's our value proposition, and why the investment should be made in what we're doing, right? And I think if we stay centered, if we continue to advocate for what we're doing and the impact we're having on our communities, that's going to bring in the resources that we need.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm really glad to hear you focus on the fact that even though there are challenges, the systemic barriers are so entrenched, it's going to take some time to navigate them through, but people need to be persistent as they go through with that. So thank you for shining a light on that. Bronwyn, for you, when you look at women entrepreneurs in particular across Canada, and you're in BC, and we're all out here at almost noon, and you're at 7:30 in the morning. Thank you for that. What are the main gaps in service offerings to women entrepreneurs that you think exist across the country, and how do you think we should really address those? What are your recommendations there?
Thank you. And yeah, I'll try to keep this relatively brief. So hopefully Kelly can get in one more question as well before we run out of time here. And I think I'm going to have I was trying to think of some specific things for this one, but I actually want to go with something more general, which has kind of come out of this conversation, which is that I think something we really learned from COVID is the importance of community and the risks associated with the lack of community. And I mean community beyond the people that we interact with day to day in our comfort zone, in our networks, and our industries. And I don't know if I know exactly how we do this, but a gap that I see is rebuilding a community where we're truly learning from each other, and we're learning across sectors, industries, networks, experiences, because I do think that's a gap. I think I have a pretty strong network in the industry I work in, but that doesn't mean that you're completely missing a perspective if you brought somebody else to the table who works in a different sector. And there was a question later on that I don't think we'll get to, which is, how do we support, get to global impact? How do we actually create impact? And I think it really is collaboration across sectors, private, public, and nonprofit. And then also, shared learning, because I really worry about the polarization of people's perspectives and the lack of being able to learn from people and share, so that you can actually have that empathy and see this is this person's experience. How do we learn from that? So if there's service offerings we can build that break barriers and create shared learning, I think that's really valuable to establish community and start rebuilding back better together, hopefully not in conflict with one another.
All right, thank you so much, Bronwyn. Kelly, we're coming out of time, but we want to just shift gears and talk a little bit about youth entrepreneurs. So what type of specific support, from your perspective, youth entrepreneurs need that is not being currently addressed?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think we've seen over the past 2 years that, small businesses are really the backbone of our economy. And I think that we have to learn to nurture the dreams of young entrepreneurs. Oftentimes, especially in our community, we tend to push our fears and doubt on our kids. Let's say a 15-year-old comes and says to mom, I want to open a bakery. And then the first thing you say is, are you sure about that? So you immediately start planting that seed, right, of doubt. And I'll start with that. I think that we really need to start nurturing the dreams of young entrepreneurs so that they continue to flourish and not give up. Then I think we need to encourage entrepreneurship in our school curriculum and show that that is how the economy is built. So we need to promote that entrepreneurship as a career opportunity for youth. And this starts by having more incubators designed specifically for young business owners. And I don't think we do a great job at promoting funding opportunities in schools as well for those young entrepreneurs. So I think we need to do that, promote more opportunities to start funding. And finally, I think that we need to have more mentorship. for the next generation of business owners so that they don't make the same mistakes as us, right? So there needs to be a robust membership program for young entrepreneurs with people who just look just like them. So we start, like, just to finish that, I think school. Let's make sure that entrepreneurship is taught at school. We don't really do a great job, and encourage young people to get into business as a career opportunity.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Candice. Thank you, Bronwyn and Kelly, for this morning. What we heard today, the critical focus that we need to put on understanding social exclusion, how it impacts racialized women, immigrant women, embedding sustainability in the work that we do so that we, could work towards a better future for folks as we consume resources today. And the criticality for us to focus on systemic change. So even though there are a lot of dialogue around making change, having impact, and focusing on the plight and challenges that women entrepreneurs encounter, there are still systemic barriers to accessing resources, as in financial resources and other support, to move potential business ideas into reality, or getting the resources to scale and develop businesses. So to Kelly, Candice, and Bronwyn, thank you so much. It was wonderful learning about your journey. Your insights were very helpful, and thank you, Casa. And I'm going to turn it back to the Casa team.
A great applause to panel 2 for the enlightening session. Wonderful to hear your stories and accomplishments and learning points too. I'm sure our audience of esteemed women across different walks of life would want to connect with you. So again, thank you so much, and thank you, Surana. At this point, I will now invite Dr. Olutoyin to introduce the keynote speaker to us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that I speak the minds of all of us in the room that it's been a morning of shared experiences and great insights shared by these experts that we brought into the room today. It's such a pleasure again to be in this room with you all, and so with you to keep at it. This morning, it gives me great pleasure, a great honor again, to introduce to you our audience at Women Inspire, esteemed ladies, the keynote speakers that have been carefully selected today. First of those speakers would be Her Worship Crumby, that's the mayor of Mississauga, that's in Ontario, Canada. And I'm just going to provide a brief introduction. Since our election as mayor in 2014, Mayor Crumby has worked diligently to hold the line on taxes, focusing on investment and improving traffic congestion, building transit. And she's attracted major economic development to the city. A lot of investments, a lot of partnerships, and this is the focus area of Mayor Crumby. And so it's with all pleasure and honor that I introduce to you again Mayor Bonnie Crumby, as she presents to Women Inspire 2022 her message of hope. Over to you, Mayor.
Hello, Mayor Bonnie Crombie here from the great city of Mississauga, sending my best wishes to everyone attending the 3rd edition of the Women Inspire Forum, hosted by the CASA Foundation. I'd like to thank today's organizers for hosting this event that celebrates women in business and inspires women leaders, youth, and students to be role models in our world. Women-owned small and medium enterprises continue to be underrepresented. In fact, only 16% of Canadian small and medium-sized businesses are women-owned. Promoting women in business and coming together to talk about our strengths and journeys are just some of the ways we can continue to foster gender equality in leadership and empower women in business. Whether you're an established business, launching, or just thinking about starting your own business, you have taken a large step forward to break gender bias and have paved the way for another woman to succeed. On International Women's Day, we celebrate the women who have defied the odds and broken through barriers. Because of their courage, we have made progress on achieving greater gender equality, but there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Whether it's in our schools, workplaces, or anywhere else in our community, we all have a collective duty to acknowledge biases that exist, challenge stereotypes, broaden our perceptions of gender and gender roles, and do whatever we can to break barriers so all women have a place in the world. In order to achieve a truly inclusive world, we must help women succeed by lifting them up, encouraging them to dream big, and offering resources and support. So I ask that today, on International Women's Day, you take a moment to think about what you can do in your everyday life that can help break the bias that women face. From action comes change, and it is my hope that our society becomes an even more inclusive place, free of bias, inequality, and injustice. I hope you enjoy this forum and learn something about yourselves and each other. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous. J'aimerais remercier toute l'équipe organisatrice de cet événement inspirant pour les femmes en affaires, pour les femmes en leadership. Aujourd'hui, cette célébration, cette conversation, cette réflexion sont des actions qui sont des leviers nécessaires pour chaque entrepreneur. Où que vous soyez, qui que vous soyez, femme d'affaires, jeune leader, vous êtes sur votre chemin et votre parcours vous a amené à déjà mettre la pièce à l'édifice pour une autre femme. Vous avez déjà aidé la suivante. Aujourd'hui, en cette journée de la femme, la journée internationale de la femme, nous souhaitons célébrer les femmes qui réussissent et qui continuent malgré toutes les chances. Il y a du progrès à faire pour éliminer les biais liés au genre. Et c'est notre mission collective de contribuer dans ce combat. Il faut aider à soutenir les femmes entrepreneurs en agissant également à sa propre échelle dans la lutte contre les biais et les stéréotypes. Ce devoir collectif nous ramène à élargir nos horizons et notre devoir personnel nous tient à soutenir les filles, les femmes à rêver en grand, à se lancer en affaires. Et c'est de nos actions collectives que vient le changement dans cette société, pour une société plus inclusive et pour une société où le progrès continue pour la participation et le succès des femmes. J'espère que vous allez en apprendre énormément pendant cet événement et que vous allez aussi en apprendre sur vous-même. Merci à tous. Bon événement.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Thank you for that. And thank you so much to the Mayor, Bonnie Crombie, for your warm welcome to Women Inspire 2022. Right now, we have a second keynote speaker. And our second keynote speaker is none other than the Honorable Rachel Valdez, the Member of Parliament for Mississauga, Streetsville. The Honorable Rachel Valdez was elected to office in 2021 at the federal election in 2021. And MP Valdez currently serves on the Standing Committee of Agriculture and Agri-Foods, as well as the Standing Committee on Veteran Affairs. Prior to getting elected, the MP Valdez was an entrepreneur and previously worked in corporate banking. Additionally, the MP Valdez was involved in philanthropic causes and was a not-for-profit leader, has served her community over the years and continues to serve. Today, we welcome the Honorable Rachel Valdez to Women Inspire 2022 to deliver her keynote remarks. Thank you, Your Honorable. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Bienvenue à toutes et à tous. I am pleased to be joining you all virtually today for this amazing Women Inspire event. Je suis heureuse de me joindre virtuellement à vous toutes à Women Inspire aujourd'hui. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm joining you virtually from Ottawa and that the land I am on today is the unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. I am pleased to be here on behalf of my colleague, Helena Jacek, the Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. Thank you to the team at CASA Foundation for hosting this outstanding event in celebration of International Women's Day. Merci à l'équipe de la CASA Foundation d'avoir organisé cet événement à l'occasion de la Journée internationale des femmes. We know now more than ever, supporting women and women entrepreneurs is vital to our economy and our communities. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, nous savons qu'il est très important de soutenir les femmes et toutes particulièrement les femmes entrepreneurs. Certainly, during the pandemic, we've seen that women have been disproportionately impacted. Women are more likely to be employed in hard-hit sectors like hospitality, retail, and service sectors. Women have also had to take on additional caregiving responsibilities and have faced higher rates of job loss and lower rates of job recovery during this pandemic. These are significant challenges on top of the already difficult barriers women entrepreneurs continue to face, such as hurdles to accessing capital and the networks for businesses to thrive. At the same time, there have been remarkable stories of women entrepreneurs who continue to challenge and overcome these barriers. Many of you in attendance who have adapted your businesses to digital models, embraced new technologies, and have had to keep adjusting as the economic landscape shifted. Today's theme is all about bridging the digital gap as we recover from the impacts of the pandemic. Le thème d'aujourd'hui porte sur la nécessité de combler le fossé numérique alors que nous nous remettons des conséquences de la pandémie. As a government, we understand how critical this element has been to the survival of so many businesses during the past 2 years. To that end, we have made significant investments in helping business owners across Southern Ontario adopt to digital models during the pandemic. Through programs like Digital Main Street, more than 30,000 entrepreneurs had a hand in developing their websites, expanding e-commerce, and enhancing their digital presence. For participants here today looking for help with this, I encourage you to check out the Canada Digital Adoption Program website for news and supports that are available to your business. At the same time, our government continues to make significant investments to support women entrepreneurs succeed through the $6 billion Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. Through the WES Ecosystem Fund being delivered by FedDev Ontario here in our region, the federal government is providing the vital funding for women-led businesses and not-for-profit organizations to build an ecosystem of support tailored for women entrepreneurs. Collectively, across the network in Southern Ontario, these incubators, accelerators, and organizations are helping more than 17,000 women entrepreneurs. As our government continues to build an economic recovery that works for Canadians, we remain focused on ensuring Canada's pandemic recovery is one that creates opportunity for everyone. With this focus in mind, this past summer, the federal government was proud to announce more than $4.7 million in support for CASA Foundation, the host of today's event through the Black Entrepreneurship Program. With this funding, CASA is establishing a Black advisory hub across Canada that will reach and support more than 5,000 Black entrepreneurs and Black-led businesses over the next 3 years. Through the hub's incubator and accelerator programming, Black entrepreneurs will be supported in their business journeys, including everything from business advice to mentorship, training webinars, connection to capital, and networking opportunities. I look forward to seeing the impact of this project as it moves ahead, along with all the program this organization continues to deliver. Thank you to everyone who is here today and for the great work you are doing. Merci à toutes celles qui sont présentées aujourd'hui et aussi pour votre excellent travail. Whether you are here as an entrepreneur, a coach, a supporter, or one of the team members who have made today's event a reality, you are all contributing to building an ecosystem of support for women and underrepresented entrepreneurs across the country. I wish you all success, and our government looks forward to continuing to work with you to build a resilient and diverse economic future for all Canadians. I hope you all have a great event today. Thank you, and merci.
Merci à tous. nous souhaitons remercier l'honorable Rechi Valdez pour son intervention. L'honorable Rechi Valdez, qui a également un passé d'entrepreneuriat avec beaucoup de succès, commence son intervention par reconnaître qu'elle est sur un territoire, une nation et Anishinaabe qui est non cédée. Elle est très reconnaissante et souhaite adresser un grand merci à l'équipe organisatrice et elle souligne l'impact disproportionné que la pandémie a eu sur les femmes. Les femmes ont donc fait face à plus de pertes de travail et en ont retrouvé moins. De plus, les femmes étaient plus en position de travailler dans des secteurs qui sont très touchés, comme les secteurs du tourisme ou les secteurs du service, qui ont été très fortement impactés par la pandémie. Et cela vient de plus, les femmes ont eu à prendre des charges de soins aux familles, de soins aux proches supplémentaires. Cela vient s'ajouter aux barrières traditionnelles que les femmes avec lesquelles les femmes doivent composer lors de l'accès à l'entrepreneuriat, qui sont, pour nommer seulement quelques-uns, l'accès au capital, l'accès au réseau, l'accès au mentorship. Cependant, il faut souligner que, à travers la pandémie, des modèles de support, des modèles de succès des femmes entrepreneurs se sont distingués lors de la pandémie. Et le gouvernement est très attaché à développer une reprise qui inclut toutes les femmes et surtout toutes les femmes entrepreneurs. Le gouvernement a investi à s'adapter au fossé numérique, à aider toutes les entrepreneurs à traverser cet objectif et à devenir très adeptes au monde numérique, à se transformer et à s'adapter grâce à la pandémie. Le gouvernement a financé plusieurs initiatives. Parmi ces initiatives, nous retrouvons le Canada Digital Adoption Programme, donc le programme d'adoption digitale au Canada. Le gouvernement a également lancé un programme de support de l'entrepreneuriat envers les femmes en Ontario du Sud qui, tout combiné, aide plus de 17 000 femmes. Et le gouvernement multiplie les initiatives qui s'adaptent aux femmes entrepreneurs et à leurs besoins spécifiques en Ontario et au Canada. Il faut absolument que la reprise après la pandémie crée des opportunités pour les femmes. Et c'est avec cette intention que le gouvernement a investi 4,7 millions de dollars en soutien à la Fondation CASA sur les 3 prochaines années. La Fondation CASA a mis sur pied un Black Advisory Hub qui, tout combiné, va également aider plus de 5000 entrepreneurs noirs dans les 3 prochaines années. Nous avons très hâte de voir l'impact de cette initiative et à travers ces initiatives, le travail de la Fondation CASA va permettre de connecter ces jeunes entrepreneurs autant à des réseaux, autant à des opportunités de capital et également à des excellentes opportunités de mentorship qui vont pouvoir accompagner les entrepreneurs vers du succès. Nous sommes donc très impatients, nous avons donc hâte de voir l'impact des initiatives de la Fondation CASA. Merci à tous et bon événement.
Wow, hope you guys are enjoying this conference as much as I am. We'll now be going into a 10-minute break and we're going to be playing a game. So yay! How much do you know about these inspiring women? The prize is bragging rights, but I'm also hearing something about maybe a gift card. So I encourage everyone to play. So get out your phones and go to kahoots.it. The QR code and the game pin are going to be on the screen, and then I'll give it about 2 minutes for people to log in. So if I could just have the technical team just put it on the screen so that we can get people logging in, and then we can get started. Yeah, press play. Yep, so if you just look on the screen, it should be kind of behind me. You can either use your camera and scan the QR code and it's going to take you directly to the game, or you can just put in the pin. So let's just start logging in. I want to see all your names on it. I want to see you guys participating. Remember, it's sounding like there is going to be a prize besides the bragging rights. We want to see how much knowledge you know on these International Women's Day. I myself, I'm going to log in, but I'm not going to be playing because obviously I know all the answers, but I do want to see what you guys have. So I'm going to give it about 2 minutes for everyone to just log in. If you need more time, if the 2 minutes is up, just put it in the chats. I mean, I'm looking at it, but let's see everyone logging into play. I'm seeing people coming in. So I'm just going to go on my phone over here and I'm going to put it in, but don't worry, I'm not going to be playing. I know all the answers. Yeah, so, okay, I see a lot of people logging in. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Lima. Hello, Dave. So let's just give it another minute and just keep logging in, and then we'll get started. Wow, looks like we have a lot of people. Yeah, let's keep it coming, guys. Let's keep it coming. I'm just checking the chat just to make sure if anyone needs any more time. The pin is media managers in the chat box. So if you can't see it or you're having technical difficulties, you can also check the chat box to see the pin in there. So let's give it 30 more seconds. So you have 30 seconds. This is your last chance to get in. Don't forget, there is a gift prize. So bragging rights and a gift prize. Okay, 10 more seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, I'm joking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're closing it. That person just got in at the last second. So we can start it. So first question. This one's easy. How many Grand Slams has Serena Williams won? Everyone has to know this one. I don't want to see any wrong answers. Everyone has to know. This is Serena Williams. So how many Grand Slams has Serena Williams won? The answers are pouring in. 23. Only one person got. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. Okay, there's still time for a comeback. Next question. Who was the first woman to fly into space? So you have 20 seconds to answer this question. The first woman to fly into space. Remember, it's the month we're celebrating women. So everyone should be ramping up their knowledge. They should know this answer. First woman to fly into space. Wow. Okay. Okay, next question. Let's see. Okay, so this one you type in the answer. So who wrote this book, Frankenstein, when they were 20 years old? This should be an easy one because I think we all had to read it in high school. So you should have this in your mind. I'm not going to type in any answers because I know it, but let's see. Okay. No one got it right. Oh, wow. Okay, let's do the next one. Someone said the questions are hard. I don't think they're too hard, but we do have some double point questions. So there is time to redeem yourself. So don't worry. Let's see. So the next question. Which famous founder of the modern nursing was nicknamed the lady with the lamp? The lady with the lamp. There's actually, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I actually put some hints in the pictures when you're doing the quiz. So if you look on some of the questions, you're gonna see the answers. So, okay. Next question. Wow, CCO is just dominating. Who can dethrone them? This is a double point question. So it's actually time. She became the Queen of the United Kingdom and oversaw the great expansion of the British Empire. It's kind of a trick question, but let's see if some people can get it. So at 18, the key is at 18. Okay, 2 people, this is what I like to see. 2 people got it, that's great. So let's see, next is CCO has been dethroned. Okay, next question. Let's see who ends up at the top because it's very easy to just. Susan B. Anthony was arrested for voting in the presidential election. True or false? This is basic women's history. I actually expect everyone to get this answer right because I think it's really easy. She was arrested. Was she? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, we have a lot of people got this correct. Good. Okay, the next one. Okay, some people are climbing up. Let's see if they can dethrone the #1 spot. So now this one, you have to arrange it in order of the events that happened. So this one's a tricky one. That's why it's a double point question, but this is your time to dethrone who is at #1. So you need to arrange these events in the order that it happened. So when did Rosa Parks say no? When did the first woman win the Nobel Prize? The first woman to fly a plane, and women got the rights to vote. So in what order did these things happen? So starting from what happened first to what happened, well, not last, but like basically the order, the timeline in which it happened. So really think about it. What do you think the order of this question is? So I'll give a hint. So a small hint is that the first woman to get the rights to vote, the first country to give women the first rights to vote was New Zealand, according to them. And this happened in ... Okay, that's good. A good amount of people got that correct. So you do know your women history. That's what I like to see. And the next question. Who is the richest Black woman in the world? Everyone has to get this. Who is the richest Black woman in the world? Beyonce? Rihanna? So this is alone. This is not Beyonce and Jay-Z, just Beyonce, Rihanna, Serena Williams, or Oprah? Nice. Oh, number one has been dethroned by D. Okay, let's see if D stays on top. Who is this young lady? So a picture is gonna show up and you have to type your answer. So try to get the spelling correct. Try to get the spelling correct because that does matter. But who is this young lady in this picture? The picture that you're looking at. We've learned about her in the history books. Who is this young lady? Oprah. That is not Oprah. It was Anne Frank. And now to end it, just put in the box below how you're enjoying the event. We just want to hear your thoughts. Are you finding it interesting, entertaining? We want to hear what you think about the event. So someone got the questions mixed up and put Anne Frank, but it's good to see a lot of people are finding it interesting, awesome. So the more people put in words, the bigger it gets. So that's really good. So thank you for playing the game. So I'm just we're going to go back to our regular scheduled program. So I'm just going to give it about 2 minutes for everyone to just come back. And then we're going to get back on track and I'll introduce panel 3. So let's just take this couple of minutes, use the bathroom, grab your coffee, get some biscuits, just relax. We have 2 more minutes and then we'll get back into our regular scheduled program. Thank you. So welcome back to everyone who went on break. We are back to our regular scheduled program, and I hope you enjoyed the game. Our next panel includes speaker Sadrin Prom Temp, a professor at ESG, Anisha Singh, CEO of She Capital India, and Michelle Guy, AVP of Business Banking at TD. This session will be moderated by Ni Odo Yamal, President of the Ghanaian Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and the topic is Women Leaders, Unlocking the Power of Digital E-commerce and investment options. Please take it away, Ni Odo.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hello,
Hi
hi.
there.
Good. I'm very excited to be joined by such amazing women for this topic, women leaders unlocking the power in digitalization. This is a very exciting topic, and today, as we celebrate International Women's Day, I strongly believe that it's a very important topic to look at. As we all know, e-commerce is one of the areas that is very very essential area to look at when it comes to business nowadays, especially with COVID and all that. E-commerce deals with buying of goods and services, or even transmitting data and funds electronically, mostly through the internet. And therefore, it's an area that we need to focus on as we come out from this pandemic. So very much excited. I would therefore, I'm joined today with three amazing women who will be answering some questions in regards to this. We have Sandrine Prom, Michelle Guy, and also Anisha Singh who will be joining us from India. Without much ado, I would like to leave the floor to the speakers to introduce themselves, and then I will proceed from there. Thank you very much.
Michelle, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me here, everyone. It's so nice to be here to celebrate International Women's Day. My name is Michelle Guy, and I'm an AVP at TD Bank in Canada in the business banking segment.
Thank you, Michelle. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Great. So let's
yes.
Go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you today and very pleased to participate in this panel, very exciting panel. So my name is Sandrine Prom Tep, and I'm Associate Professor at ESG Business School at University of Quebec in Montreal. And my areas of specialty in terms of research and teaching are digital marketing, online consumer habits, and so forth. So social media, mobile, and internet.
Oh, great. Okay, so let's dive into it. I believe Anisha Singh will join us later via on video, so we can start. I'll just jump straight into the questions, and this first question goes to Michelle. The question is that women right now in trade are looking for inroads and additional resources. Can women access to develop e-commerce platform for trade while waiting for access to capital and show fundraise? If you can.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you. So I actually spoke to some folks at TD Small Business Enterprise Center, and I got some really great insight on this one about a couple of fantastic programs that are available. So I'll share a bit of specifics on those. First one is something called Digital Main Street, which is available in New Brunswick, Ontario, and Alberta here in Canada. Digital Main Street itself connects Main Street businesses to the most innovative digital providers. Digital Main Street has selected trusted digital product and service providers for business to work with who are offering the best deals exclusively when you sign up. There's actually a page within Digital Main Street called Shop Here, which is powered by Google and creates online stores for independent small businesses and artists at no cost, which I think is a fantastic avenue. Also, I think you may have heard this in some of the discussions this morning. I caught a glimpse of it from a previous panel, but Keynote, where They talked about a government program as well. So last week, our federal government actually announced the launch of Canadian Digital Adoption Platform, or CDAP. This is a $4 billion investment that our Canadian government has put forward to really help accelerate the digital transformation of small, medium enterprises through grants and loans. For example, if you're looking to grow your business online, you can get a grant to help with the costs of an e-commerce platform. If your business requires more advanced technologies, you can get a grant to develop a digital adoption plan. If you think you need more support than that, including, implementing digital transformation, you can also apply for a 0% interest-free loan for up to $100,000 through Business Development Canada. We think the interest-free component is a key advancement of this strategy. From what we understand, applications for loans and grants are now open, and it includes a grant and an open to physical and online businesses. Overall, I would say, we know that 50% of all online businesses launched in are done so by women. And a recent PayPal study from Canada also says that we're exposed to a 58% revenue gap, where women entrepreneurs earning $68,000 less annually than their male peers running similar types of businesses. Ultimately, helping to bridge this revenue gap could unlock an additional $88 billion in contribution to our Canadian economy, which is enormous. And we feel that narrowing such a significant discrepancy in earnings between men and women entrepreneurs is no small task. However, studies find that e-commerce tools play a critical role in closing the revenue gap and increasing the earning potential for women entrepreneurs. In fact, women entrepreneurs using e-commerce reported 75% more earnings than female peers who do not sell online. So increasing that access to capital is a really critical revenue catalyst, and unfortunately remains an access to barrier.
Wow. A lot of great information that you've just given us. I believe that our listeners will be very much excited about this, especially the one that you mentioned with regards to the digital adaptation platform that the government has announced. That's a very exciting one, and so I'll still continue on with the questions, and I think we'll come back with some few questions on that. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if Professor Sandrine would like to give some comments here before we proceed to the next question.
No. I find that all the information that Michelle provided is very useful, and it's great that she also has the specific figures and statistics to support all that. I think it's great to know exactly, how huge the gap is. When Michelle was talking about the revenue gap, I agree. I mean, we all know, but when you put figures on those gaps, it means something else. I mean, it becomes more concrete, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's very true. And we are excited to also know that at least e-commerce can be a solution that will help us bridge that gap. And so this is very amazing. Next question that we have has to do with what prevents women from taking part in digital commerce. Do governments play a role in enabling them to participate more fully? If so, what can governments do to enable women to be part of digital commerce? So I think this question can be answered by both of you, whoever goes first.
I could start, but I think Sandrine probably has a lot to add to this as well. I think on what inhibits us from taking part in digital commerce as women, if I think of my own experience, I would say it's probably a lack of background and understanding in data and digital literacy, potentially as one barrier. My own educational background was in business and accounting, so I had no sort of STEM, data, digital experience or expertise at all. And I found that early on in my career, as I was going through business and accounting, an opportunity came up to blend accounting, business, data, digital. I was really nervous about it at first, but it was also very exciting to learn something new. So I really took a leap, and then I ended up spending about 15 years of my career in data and analytics, and now in a digital role. So I'm leading a digital transformation in business bank at TV, and I have no coding background. So what I would say is, I had grown my own career as an analyst, people manager, leader, and now an executive in many roles. But I wasn't afraid to learn anything new, especially within that digital space. And my advice would be, take a leap, learn and embrace, and it only helps us to keep growing.
Oh wow, that's great. Any comments on that from Professor Sandrine?
Yes, well, actually, I will pursue in the same line as Michelle started. First of all, I went and searched for specific information on those issues, and I found on the RDRC website for the Internet 5 research project that they have, that they mentioned, three challenges actually. So elements that prevent women from, taking advantage of technology and e-commerce in general. And the first one they mentioned, of course, we all know that, but it's the underrepresentation of women in fields such as computer science and engineering. And that's the beginning of not having role models for young women, to get inspired from, and of course, to get motivated from. So that's really the first and foremost element that has to be corrected as far as I'm concerned. And I just wanted to have some backup for my own, but that's really first and foremost. Second, they mentioned, of course, and it's linked, the lack of access and skills, right? So the fact that women have, as Michelle mentioned, to develop their tech literacy, and that's something they have to do at the individual level. It's a matter of education. And I understand that they're not so attracted to these sectors because of the first element I mentioned, but still they have to do the leap of faith, as Michelle mentioned, because it's really important that they get this education. Today, this tech literacy is as important as a reading skill, or as being able to count from 1 to 10. It's as important. So we have to make sure that women develop those skills. This is the second element. And the third, which is not last but not least, is the fact that they also should get career and business guidance. So that's at the end, once they get motivated to get into these sectors, and then they get the skills, then they might to start as entrepreneur in those areas, then they need to have the guidance, the career guidance and the business guidance available to them. And this is going beyond the boys club limits. It's something that they have to be able to get through from, for instance, government programs, mentoring, or, women's groups, support groups, to make sure that they have those network connections that allow them to grow their business once they get to that step.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So from what I'm hearing, education is a key there. They have to ensure that they are getting the right education that they need in that space, because right now, IT and e-commerce is the way to go. So if you don't educate yourself in that space, you wouldn't even know what's going on, let alone to even look for us for that. So the education, the networking is the key.
Only thing I'd add there is it's never too late to get educated either, right? Like I said in my example, I have a business and accounting degree, never went into technology at all, but I was always curious to learn, and I've built that through my experience and some education as well with data and digital. So it's never too late.
Yeah, and that's very true, especially with COVID happening and things like that. We all realize that everybody is falling on the internet, and therefore, if you don't join, you'll be left behind. So I like that. That's very, very great. The next question that we have, which goes directly to Professor Sandrine, is how digital e-commerce increases return on investment. for B2B and even B2C companies? How can digital e-commerce help increase the return on investment for those companies?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. And you know what? I also went and did some research to make sure that I could have some support for those answers as well. And what I found is that basically it is true for male businesses the same way as it is for women businesses, because it doesn't make any difference. On that regard, e-commerce is equal, right? So basically, the 4 elements I would like to mention is the fact that, first of all, if you try to open an online business, it will, for the beginning at first, at least, lower your operating costs, because you have now platforms, services that are available to everyone that can basically allow you to open up an online store and have your inventory managed, and sometimes even delivery managed through the platform. So it's easy to have an informational and a transactional website nowadays. You simply go to platforms such as WordPress, for instance, or you can use platforms such as Shopify or Lightspeed, and you will get those services just ready to use, right? So I would say that, first of all, if you compare the costs of opening a physical store, then it's more advantageous because it's less cost. But at the same time, I mean, we have to nuance that and say that, you know, you're going to have to struggle with a lot of learning. You're going to have to, you know, overcome other challenges, you know. So it's not a matter of being easy. That's the old myth that it's because it's online, it's easy. No, it's not one click and it's done. But at the same time, if you go through the whole process of learning how to set it up and use those services, I mean, it's not like you have to program it from A to Z as you used to have to, right? So that's the first element I would like to mention. So lowering the operating costs. The second one is maybe the most important one, but the one that we tend to forget. It's the fact that in the digital world, you get traces of anything a user or a consumer does on your website or on your app. You can track whatever they like, whatever they search on your website or on your app, or you can, you know where they left your website. And all those elements are really important for you to better your user experience, so you can optimize it all the time gradually. And at the same time, you can use this information if you have a brick and mortar store to better your customer experience at the brick and mortar store as well, because these digital traces, they can work both ways. So they help optimize the user experience and the customer experience if you get to the next stage. So it's really important that you track your users with web analytics and mobile analytics that help you with these, personalization features that help you reach the best return on your investment. So that would be the second element, but maybe the most important element. The third one I would say would be that through the fact that you can switch from an online store and an in-store, physical store, then you get also the best of both worlds, because they are actually they complement themselves, So once you have the online store, people can go there and check for products, and then they can go to your store and have the feeling and the experience of the products if they are interested. But sometimes it's the other way around, They might go to the store first, and once they know what they want, then they just go online and do repeat business because they only need to order it. They don't need to go to the store again. So that's the advantage. You can start with an online store and then you can complement it with an in-store, and using all the data that you get through the big data that we all know of now, then you can really optimize those two. You know, this is the reason why Amazon didn't remain online pure player. They decided to actually buy regular brick and mortar food stores so that they could combine all the information that they had about customers, you know, in the stores and online. So this is really important. And last but not least, it seems quite obvious, but it expands your reach, you know. I mean, you're not just limited to your neighborhood, to your region, or to your country. I mean, once it works, it can work anywhere, and customers can come from any international markets. So this is very advantageous in terms of competition for businesses, right?
Right. The other thing I found here is that you alluded to the fact that about the low cost to set up this, but what about security issues? You know, sometimes there's maybe some security issues there when you're online, and also even the tax liabilities and things like that. Because you mentioned sometimes you can be in store and also online. So I found that there might be some kind of security issues and even tax liabilities in there.
There is, and this is why I took the time to mention that there were going to be challenges along the way. I mean, it's not as easy as one click, but I agree with you that security issues have to be addressed to make sure that, you know, your online store is working properly and, you know, protecting the data from your customers as it should.
Perfect. Very good insights. I'm not sure if Samisha would like to say something in regards to this question, or you want me to proceed?
Yeah, no, that was great. Sandrine had some fantastic insights. I think that was very well said.
That's great.
I forgot to mention the source, that this was from the Bank of, from the development, what's the name again? Sorry, I have it in French. Yeah, it's the Business Development Bank of Canada. Sorry, I only had it in French and I couldn't figure, I couldn't remember it in English. Sorry.
All right. Thanks for citing that. Thanks a lot. It's okay. So the next question goes to Anisha Singh. She'll be answering the question, how to improve digital experience for your customer. So I think she'll be answering that. She has a video from India, so will be played to us. How do you improve digital experience for your customer? That's the question. So go ahead. I think she's muted. Can we unmute her? Go ahead.
The early and later stage in women. Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. Just to give you a quick overview, my name is Anisha Singh. I run an early stage tech fund called She Capital out of India. As the name suggests, we invest in women-led, early and later stage consumer tech startups that are led by women. Prior to this, I founded and ran an internet company called Maidala, which we grew to about 200 cities across India, UAE, and Thailand. Back to the question, which is, how do you improve the digital experience for your customer? We now work with a lot of consumer tech businesses, and this is one thing that I tell every business to keep in mind. No consumer the consumers today are getting more and more advanced, and their whole thing at one point is to make sure that they have kind of a seamless experience. They're not essentially digital any longer. It's a more of an omni-channel approach where you're actually interacting with them at several points. And so I think I, as a consumer, want to feel special and want to know that you as a business understand me and know me, especially if I bought from you. And so one of the things that we've kept in mind, and we tell all our portfolio companies to do, is make sure no matter where the experience is, that it is actually pretty seamless, and to interacting with them at several points. And so I think I, as a consumer, want to feel special and want to know that you as a business understand me and know me, especially if I bought from you. And so one of the things that we've kept in mind, and we tell all our portfolio companies to do, is make sure no matter where the experience is, that it is actually pretty seamless, and to assume that your consumers are spoiled for they're omnipresent, just like you probably have an omni-channel approach. And so their physical / online experience, so the phygital experience, should be absolutely flawless and seamless, and it should be working as cohesively as possible. So that's something to keep in mind no matter where you are.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking this question all the way from India. Very great answer. We'll continue. We have one of the, I believe this is our last question for both panelists. If you are ready, let's take this. Is what is the scope of digital transformation, and why is this transformation needed?
Sure.
So
I can get started.
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. So using digital technology is really becoming table stakes, to create new and modify existing business processes, culture, and customer experience. It helps us to meet the changing business demands, the market requirements, and in many cases, reimagining a business in the digital age completely. We've seen a lot of examples of this during the pandemic, where many businesses have had to reimagine themselves because of what we've gone through over the last 2 years. I think digital has really allowed us to leapfrog our organizations since the pandemic began, and will only continue to do so. I do really think it's table stakes now and into the future.
Great, Michelle. I think so. Basically, what you are hearing is that this is the way to go. We have nowhere else to go. So it's either you get involved, get educated in it, and then that will help you transform your business.
100%.
Okay. Professor, any feedback on that?
Well, to be honest, it's impossible to disagree with Michelle. I mean, it's impossible to disagree with this point. I mean, it's a necessity today, I believe, and businesses who don't understand and get on the bang wheel, they won't survive, actually, to be
Absolutely.
honest. They just
We've seen
won't
examples
survive.
of that. Yeah.
Exactly. And as Michelle mentioned, we've seen a lot of examples of businesses who did thrive and survive during the pandemic, and they really had to turn around on a very, very short notice. So they did survive thanks to that. But we also witnessed how the customer habits changed during that period. That's what was really interesting, to see the correspondence. So if you take, for example, the food sector, okay?
Yes.
Our habits have changed so much during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But the restaurants had to adapt the same way we had to adapt. And so we actually did the same switch at the same time to make sure we all survived during those harsh times. So that's what's interesting, is that it works both ways. Businesses need markets to exist, and it's the other way around as well. I mean, consumers need businesses to adapt to new conditions so that they remain served and happy and satisfied. So that's what's interesting, is that
kind of a fascinating experiment, if you think about
definitely. At the social level, it is definitely. So yes, I just wanted to stress that fact, that it's not just businesses, it's also consumers who are adapting, and actually consumers are adapting much faster than businesses are. And for sure, it's easier for them. I mean, it's less complex. It's no secret, right? But still, if businesses want to survive, they have to adapt and they have to be there for the consumers because they are already there.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Otherwise, you'll be left behind, like I said before, because that is where the world is going. As you said, customers are even ahead of the businesses. And therefore, it's now, if you're a business, you have to play a catch-up game to be able to.
100%.
The transformation is the way to go. And that's very, very good. So any final comments from you guys to wrap up on this topic? That we can
It's a really exciting topic. So thank you so much for having us here. Would love to hear any feedback afterwards, but I could spend a lot more time on this, I'm sure, but it's been great.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Michelle. Professor Sandre, any comments from your side?
Well, sure. I want to thank you as well, and also to thank you for the fact that you have chosen panelists for this third panel that are very complementary. So it was really interesting to have Michelle's point of view. She's really into, you know, the money side of business, if I can put it that way. And I was more on the tech or social side, yes.
Yeah.
And we had Alicia on the very pragmatic side of things. So she's an entrepreneur. So she lives the experience herself. So I thought that was very interesting to have these three perspectives put together in that panel. So thank you very much again for inviting us.
Well, thank you so much. It's very exciting. We learned a lot today, and we are very excited to have you. And we believe that in the future, if you have more questions, we'll reach out to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So,
sure, my pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Alicia, also from all the way from India. Thanks, everybody. Great to have you. So we just have Ava take over. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very much. And thank you to all our panelists for these wonderful conversations. Our last panel of the day is being moderated by our very own Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade, President of CASA Foundation. The panelists are Their Excellency Surya Otomani, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco, Vivian Laurel Bamsi, Ambassador of Republic of Senegal, Ruth Mazodzi Chikwira, Ambassador of Zimbabwe, and Immaculate Wamba, High Commissioner Rep of Kenya. They will be discussing women-led businesses trading across borders. Our French translator, Sabrina Sassi, will only be translating just a part of this session. So I'll send it over to Dr. Olu to take it away. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I hope you can hear me now. All right. Great to be here, and thank you for having me on the last panel. And so good afternoon again, Your Excellencies. It's such a pleasure again to welcome you to Women Inspire 2022. It's so great to have you all here. And so this afternoon, we're just going to get right onto it. So let's get started. Just give me a second. Okay. Get started and get on with it. Right. So I'll quickly introduce my panelists this afternoon. With me this afternoon are, like the MC rightly said, Her Excellency Surya Otomani, who is the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to Canada and the Chairperson of the African Women Diplomatic Forum in Canada. You're welcome, Madam Ambassador. And Her Excellency Vivian Laurel Elizabeth Bampasi, the Ambassador of the Republic of Senegal in Canada. She was actually the first lady nominated as the governor of the district of Fatick in Senegal. And so it's such a pleasure to have you here with us, sharing insights from your experience in Senegal as governor, managing that entire district. And then, of course, translating that also again, transitioning into the diplomatic sector, serving as the ambassador of the Republic of Senegal. You're welcome, madam. And then for her ambassador Ruth Masotsi Chikora. That's the ambassador of the Republic of Zimbabwe in Canada. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us. A career diplomat, a lot of experience over the years from Germany to Poland to Dublin. And it's such a pleasure to really have you here. So we look forward to enjoying the rich experience that you have brought even to this panel this afternoon. And for the ambassador, Immaculate Wambua is ambassador of the Republic, the High Commissioner of the Republic of Kenya, a career diplomat with over 30 years of public service gained through serving in different positions, both in Kenya and missions abroad across. We're glad to have you here too, Immaculate Wambua. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure. Now let's get started with it. Because we wanted to save time, I thought I would do the introductions so we can save some time. But I reckon as we go along the way also, you possibly will have some comments, your personal experiences, and then people get to hear from you and learn more about you, your experience, your rich experience over the years. And so you can actually talk about yourself in the process, but we save ourselves that time. So we get started with it this afternoon. Africa remains one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The pandemic has hit really hard with the GDP loss, GDP losses estimated at about $680 billion. How can Africa recover from this? How do you think Africa can recover? And when I ask how, that's kind of general. So perhaps you want to focus on some opportunities. What opportunities exist? What's in place, or perhaps what policies are in place by various governments in Africa to ensure that the recovery process is fast-tracked, as we can see being done in the West. I think I'm going to start with you, Your Excellency Surya Otmani. You take it away, Madam.
Yes, good afternoon, Olu. Good afternoon to the honorable and distinguished audience. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so happy to get the opportunity to listen to a very, to a lot of women, very inspirative women, and highly interesting so to hear all the topics in the panel this morning. So yes, we can say for sure that the African continent is enjoying rapid economic growth. It is experiencing an emerging market boom, a rapid urbanization, growing middle class, accounting for over 30% of the African population, and which, as we all know, is one of the main drivers of the consumer demand for goods and services in the continent. We know also that this rapid growth contributes to attracting more foreign capital and accelerating intra and intercontinental trade. The Agenda 2063 that was adopted in 2013 in Africa aims at strengthening cooperation and integration of African countries. Its global objective is to ensure until 2063 the development of the entire continent. And as we all know, one of the flagship projects of this agenda was the launch in 2020 of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a market of 1.3 billion people. So in this changing economic environment in the continent and in the context also of the post-pandemic recovery, the entire world is currently experiencing and facing. My country, Morocco, I can say that my country, Morocco, emerged as a regional business and export hub that leverages its economic potential with sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and Europe. And I want also to let you know that Africa is the first destination of Moroccan investors who are performing in a range of important economic sectors, such as telecommunication, banking, insurance, mines, pharmaceutical, agriculture, agro-industry, industrial and transport infrastructure, renewable energy, and so on. So between 2013 and 2017, Moroccan enterprises invested $4 billion within the continent, meaning 60% of FDI, and therefore taking an active part to the socio-economic development of the continent. Cooperation and strengthening ties with Africa have been and still are on top priorities for my country. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is also the Minister of African Affairs, meaning how much in Morocco we are African oriented and how much we believe in the South-South cooperation and how much also we trust the capacities, the skills, and the huge socio-economic potential of Africa. That's why Morocco is a strong performer in Africa, and it is currently the second African country investors in the whole continent and the first in the western region of Africa. Within the 10 years before the pandemic, the head of state, the King of Morocco, visited more than 20 countries and signed more than 1,000 agreements of all kinds with various African countries. Our policy towards Africa, solidarity, shared responsibility. Also, Morocco cancelled the debt of the less advanced African countries and allow free access on its territory to various African products. So we want to better serve our inquiring to the African continent and to African countries. And we are already a member of the Sensad community. Morocco is also working to integrate and to be an active actor within the ECOWAS and within also the West African Economic and Monetary Union. We will soon ratify the African Free Trade Zone Agreement that we signed in 2018. So this is really few but important examples of the Moroccan ways and strategy for doing business and promoting business with Africa.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for those very important points. Would you want to chime in a few points? Perhaps you might have some, Madam Ambassador Vivian Laurel Bampasi.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you thank you. I want to thank you and thanks CASA Foundation for inviting us to this very interesting event. Cela dit, c'est pour moi un énorme plaisir que de participer aux côtés de mes illustres co-panélistes à cette réflexion, mes collègues, sur cette thématique majeure qui mobilise l'intelligentsia africaine et internationale, à savoir les opportunités d'investissement en Afrique, des opportunités, comme j'ai l'habitude de le dire, qui ne demandent qu'à être saisies. En effet, si pour le profane, il pourrait être mal aisé de partager mon enthousiasme, pour l'opérateur économique averti ou l'expert qui connaît un tant soit peu l'Afrique, il est facile d'apprécier à sa juste valeur les immenses possibilités d'investissement que reflète le continent. La raison en est toute simple. Africa, as you may know, is a market of 1.5 billion consumers, a third of whom belong to a growing middle class, a middle class that supports an economic growth that, before the COVID-19 pandemic, were also already around 50%. Middle class consumers are alone expected to reach 1.1 billion by 2050. Moreover, according to United Nations forecast, African population is expected to double by 2050 to 2.5 billion people. Half of this population will be very young, under 25 years of age. At the 2018 Africa CEO Forum, the volume of consumption on the continent in 2030 was estimated at $6.7 trillion, of which $2.5 trillion is household conception. It is very important to notice that. These important human resources shall be combined with huge reserves of raw materials Africa is naturally gifted with. Indeed, the continent remains one of the richest areas in the world, and as such, it possesses significant mineral resources, water, wood, oil, and hydrocarbon reserves that could generate substantial economic activities if properly exploited. To this natural gift, we can add the commitment of political African leaders to increase intra-African trade by building common economic areas such as the Economic Community of West Africa States, ECOWAS, the West African Economic and Monetary Union, the Economic Community of Central African States, and the Southern African Development Community. Moreover, very recently, the African Continental Free Trade Area has been created to stimulate trade throughout. It means that you can, for instance, set up in Senegal or Ivory Coast and sell everywhere in the continent. Therefore, almost all conditions that attract investors are being put together. Now it's up to businesswomen and businessmen to go beyond stereotypes and seize the great opportunities offered by Africa. The African continent is, for the record, in a building process towards economic growth and human development, and you can be part of that. You can be African partners and make history. It is important. Now, if you allow me, I want to focus, Doctor, a little bit on the case of Senegal, which I know the most, just to illustrate what I said earlier. Senegal is a country of Western Africa, known for its political and social stability. It is gifted with significant natural resources, such as fertile lands, woods, minerals, gas, and oil. Besides, bordered by the Atlantic Ocean, it constitutes a natural gate towards the West African and continental market. At the economic level, the ambition of Senegal is expressed in the Plan Senegal Emergent, Plan for the Emergence of Senegal, which aims at making the country an emerging economy by 2035. However, Senegal's ability to achieve this goal depends in large part on tackling key challenges, including attracting foreign investments. In this regard, the Senegalese authorities have made great effort to loosen administrative procedure, reinforce the factor of production, and update the legal framework of business environment to allow investors settle in a very short space of time and make significant benefits. As a matter of fact, foreign businesswomen and businessmen can register a business within less than 48 hours. And once their companies are legally created, they continue to be provided with constant assistance until they start doing business. That is to say that Senegal, and I'm sure several countries in Africa too, are today ready to welcome any investor interested in making profit in a peaceful, democratic, stable, and well-organized country that will provide him or her with raw materials and human resources, and above all, grant him a full access to the continent market. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you for sharing those gems and of knowledge and ideas and new policies and things happening in the Republic of Senegal. Now, to save time, I'm just going to, that's a heads up, Sabrina, to save some time and, catch up. We are going to, I see that Madam Ambassador is
she's able to cope well and sharing insights in English also. So we're just going to leave the translation part till the very close. If we do have some time, we will do that. But she's spoken English so fluently and translated everything herself, so we might as well save some time. But then I'll come back to you towards the end of this, okay? We actually do have a lot of questions. I'm sure we still have about 6 or 7, and I'm going to see if we can take all of these questions that we carefully collated from our audience, because they definitely want to hear from you about new policies and so on going on in each of the African countries. And so I'm going to quickly come to you, Immaculate Wambua, Madam Ambassador. Can you share with us, based on the report, the World Bank reports, that's the 2021 report on economic development, particularly as it relates to Eastern Southern Africa. They are the hardest hit region by the 3rd wave of the coronavirus, which is, on its way out with a lot of booster shots and so on. And the economy is expected to rebound from a 3.0% contraction of the GDP in 2020 to a growth of 3.4% in 2022. I'm not sure if we have seen that growth or if we've already started seeing the growth. But my question to you, Madam, is how will the embassy facilitate the expected economic and trade rebound, particularly to develop increased partnerships post-pandemic? Perhaps you want to share. Thank you.
Yes, thanking you, Dr. Olutuyoni, for inviting me to this very important forum, which is taking place actually during the International Women's Day, and also to acknowledge that I'm sharing this forum with my distinguished colleagues from the African missions. I don't think I'll go to details of figures that have already been touched by my 2 colleagues ahead of me. I'll just go straight to what the embassy is doing, as you have asked for me to recount. And I want to start by beginning by saying that embassies everywhere in the world represent states in foreign countries. I think we need to get that one clear in order to take care of the interests of those sending states in the foreign countries. Those interests include economic and trade issues, amongst many others. While the bilateral relations between countries cover the widest possible scope, issues ranging from political and diplomatic cooperation to education, cultural activities. It is a trade and investment promotion portfolio of the relationship that is gaining more and more prominence for almost all diplomatic missions around the world. For Kenya, the promotion of trade and investment referred to as economic diplomacy assumed a strategic importance when it got elevated to a pivotal pillar in Kenya's 5 foreign policy pillars. So economic diplomacy is one of the pillars for Kenya for economic diplomacy and trade promotion and investment in foreign countries. In this regard, the Kenya High Commission in Canada is mandated to grow and nurture the Kenya-Canada commercial relations. It does this through a variety of activities, including, there are many activities, but I'll just pick a few. Sourcing of trade and investment opportunities through participating in inter-trade related forums and exhibitions. We also facilitate both inbound and outbound trade missions with a view to establishing business-to-business contacts. And we also do linkages of Kenyan trade and investment promotion agencies to their Canadian counterparts. If I take specifically talking about the support for women entrepreneurs, I want to say that the I Commission facilitates Kenyan entrepreneurs with the relevant market access information through a recently launched business support organization directory for women entrepreneurs in Kenya. The directory helps to bridge information gap that exists among women entrepreneurs and their access to services. The mission is also a stakeholder in a joint partnership between Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency and the Canadian Trade Facilitation Office, in which will complement the Women in Trade and Sustainable Growth Project. The overall objective of the Women in Trade project is to build capacity for women in trade. That is building their capacity so that they are able to cope with the matters on trade. The mission is also engaged with the Canadian Trade Facilitation Office's Women Exporters Fund program, which is intended to reduce financial constraints on women-led small and medium-sized exporters from sub-Saharan Africa countries such as Kenya. In addition to this, Canada supports the She Trades, a Commonwealth project for promoting sustainable and gender-inclusive business ecosystems in developing countries such as Bangladesh, of course, Ghana, Kenya, and also Nigeria, and most of the African countries. Finally, on this topic, I would like to say that Kenya and Canada collaborate at a multilateral trading platform through their mutual membership in the Ottawa Conduct Group. This group is a group of 14 like-minded WTO states, and they collaborate together, while the broader agenda of the group is to achieve reforms aimed at enhancing WTO capacity to address global challenges facing trading world today. Kenya seeks its mutual membership in the group with Canada to align trade policies at the bilateral levels between Nairobi and Ottawa. And I think that is all I can say for now, Madam Olutuyoni. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador. Thank you. I'm going to come to you. I'm definitely coming back to take you up on, you know, those ideas you shared about collaboration. I think we need more insights on that, but I'll come back to you on that. It's just food for thought, and I believe we should share a little more on that. Now, to you, Your Excellency Ruth Masdosi from Zimbabwe, the SMEs generally are set, you know, they remain the economic engine of any country, as we know. SMEs, you know, small and medium enterprises of any nation. With the good news that growth in Southern Africa is projected to rebound from a negative GDP of 6.4% in 2021 to a positive of 4.6% in 2022. My question to you then this afternoon would be, what is the government doing, or what kind of policies are in place to support women, particularly startups, to be properly positioned to benefit, you know, from this rebounding, you know, from this increased GDP and the rebounding of the economy that has been reported? What kind of policies are also in place to support women? You're muted, ma'am. Okay, yeah.
Okay, many thanks, Dr. Olu, for inviting me also to be part of this panel. And I want to recognize also my colleagues, fellow female heads of missions who are part of this, and also to congratulate us as we celebrate Women's International Day and also women for March. So I'll just start by saying there are many examples in Zimbabwe of women startups. And I have an example of one woman who has become very big in the security sector, who started very small at the backyard of her house in a cottage, employing just five workers. And right now she runs a $13 million security firm, one of the biggest in Zimbabwe. Then on the other extreme, or on the other side, not on the other extreme, I have an example also of a woman who was just sleeping on the floor in a very small house, in a very small sort of like a shack. And her dream was to have, to own a bed so that she could sleep on a bed. And then she started also a very small cottage industry, making dishwashing liquid. And now she stays in a big house in a suburb. She can afford to send her kids to school. So the government put in place a ministry which for small and medium scale enterprises to encourage the small and medium enterprises. And also it's also involved in promoting women's business. Actually, its name is the Ministry of Women's Affairs, Small and Business Enterprises. So their role is to promote and to encourage women to start up businesses. So the policy is already there. And as early as 1982, let me say, they muted the setting up of a women's bank, just to do that. You know, women have many challenges in starting businesses. No capital, there's so many gender roles, cultural stereotypes to overcome. So this bank became a reality in 2017. And the aim is to encourage women, to promote them, to be part of the economy, to take part in the economy. It was realized that women, they do most of the work, they provide most of the food, they're the main agricultural producing food for the nation. And yet, despite all this, they only earn 10% of the money in the economy. So the aim is to encourage them. Now we have this women's bank. It's a microfinancing bank, and it lends from the very smallest business to the biggest. Well, not the big ones, but the small and medium enterprise. I think there is always not a clear or a misunderstanding between what we define as small business in my country or in Africa and what is small business in, like Canada, for example. But we are talking of women who will go into businesses like these backyard businesses. Mainly women are involved in businesses with a low entry cost because they have challenges in accessing financing. So they're into hairdressing, the fashion designing, dressmaking, but they do move forward. So one of the strategies, one of the policies is this women's bank. Government has also started a program to encourage young women to go into startups. They go into each province and they provide a starting up pack, be it in poultry rearing, be it in whatever business, in bakeries and so forth. So that's the other thing which government is doing right now. And then they also try to educate. Education is one of the things they are giving the young women, also young men, of course, but we're talking about women today, young women, to educate them because they've very little, if any, knowledge of how to run a business, how to access financing, how to save, because normally women will start a business with a specific agenda. Like, for example, I want to buy this. I want to buy a bed, or I want to buy a house or something like this. But to encourage them to set up self-sustaining and long-term projects so that they become going concerns as such. So education is the other thing that they are doing, encouraging women. I think for now I stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ruth. Thank you so much for those comments and those insights. Definitely, those insights are well taken. But as a matter of fact, statistics also indicate that for every woman-owned business, usually within that the group of women-owned businesses, within 2 years, usually when you start as a startup, you have statistics indicate that women-owned businesses collapse within the first 2 years of its life. And if it doesn't, then you give it the third year, until the third year. And so that's a major challenge that women have to grapple with on a day-to-day basis. Although at another forum in the course of the week, this issue was also raised. And the answer then is actually for every 100 business opened and created by the male folk too, you have about 75% collapsing, but the focus is on women more because of the lack of access to capital, to resources, to partnerships, and so on. And so I come back to you, Madam Bampasi, on the issue of access and collaboration. Is there a way we can correlate these two? If there's something, a major challenge that women are faced with as we speak, not only by statistics, but also from experience, as we know, it's the issue of access, capital, no access. They start the business, there's no access. They start because they are not able to network effectively also. They can sell because they don't really have groups of people that will buy from them. What's the role of collaboration? Can you tell us a little about this in fostering in fast-tracking development of women businesses, and what's the experience like in terms of collaboration, based on what you've seen in Canada, the examples, and based on what you do in Senegal? Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I think that for this question, I will shift in French and after have translation. So, votre question est très importante, docteur, parce que la grosse difficulté des femmes, effectivement, dans tous les secteurs, c'est l'accès au financement. Au Sénégal, nous avons le même problème. Et je pense que ce problème-là, il est identique un petit peu partout dans tous les pays africains. Lorsqu'une femme fait des affaires, ce que je vois au Sénégal, c'est que les femmes ont beaucoup d'engagement à faire des affaires. Elles veulent organiser, mettre en place des structures. Elles veulent être entrepreneurs. Mais elles ont beaucoup de craintes parce que la première difficulté, c'est l'accès aux banques. Les banques sont difficiles d'accès. Ensuite, les taux d'intérêt qu'on utilise. If you want me to stop for the translation, I can. Tell me if you want. She's okay. It's yeah. okay.
It's
okay.
all good.
So, voilà. Donc, la première difficulté à laquelle les femmes font face, c'est le taux d'intérêt qui est utilisé, qui est appliqué pour donner de l'investissement aux femmes. C'est vraiment la difficulté majeure. L'autre difficulté, c'est que très souvent, les femmes qui sont dans les zones urbaines ont plus accès aux banques et au système d'investissement, au système qui est mis en place par l'État pour supporter les femmes que celles qui sont dans les régions isolées. C'est pour ça qu'au Sénégal, j'aimerais partager cette expérience. Nous avons eu plusieurs initiatives qui ont été prises pour accompagner les femmes dans leur dynamique d'entrepreneuriat. Nous en avons eu par le passé. mais qui n'ont pas toujours été à la hauteur des attentes. Ce que le président de la République a pris comme initiative depuis 2018, c'est de mettre en place une délégation générale à l'entrepreneuriat rapide pour les femmes et les jeunes, parce qu'on sait que ce sont les deux secteurs qui posent vraiment problème quant à l'accès à l'investissement. Et donc, cette délégation rapide est installée partout au Sénégal. Elle a permis de mailler le territoire et de donner aux femmes ce qu'on appelle les nanocrédits. Les nanocrédits, c'est la femme qui, comme disait tout à l'heure Rousse, qui est qui se couche sur le sol et qui voudrait, par son dynamisme économique, faire de petites affaires pour aller plus grand petit à petit. Donc, ce sont ces nanocrédits qui sont donnés aujourd'hui au Sénégal. Vous me direz, je comprends que on reproche souvent aux dispositifs mis en place par l'État, par les États, d'être trop petits, de dire microcrédit. Pourquoi microcrédit pour les femmes? Pourquoi on ne donne pas, dès le départ, des montants importants? Mais il faut savoir qu'on doit aussi accompagner les femmes. Vous ne pouvez pas donner à quelqu'un qui n'a pas de connaissances, qui n'a pas d'expérience en matière entrepreneuriale, lui donner un montant trop important. Cela va, c'est sûr que ça ne va pas réussir. Donc, il faut accompagner les femmes par de petits crédits et y aller progressivement. L'autre exemple que j'aimerais aussi partager au Sénégal, c'est ça vient de la tradition sénégalaise. Vous avez partout dans la société sénégalaise, les femmes s'organisent. Elles s'organisent dans ce qu'on appelle les tontines. Les tontines, ça s'appelle. Et quel que soit le montant, vous aurez des tontines de 1000 francs CFA, vous en aurez de 1 million CFA. Les femmes s'organisent ainsi pour cotiser entre elles et de ces tontines-là, elles s'aident mutuellement. Ça, c'est aussi de la collaboration. Donc, il y a l'appui de l'État. L'État met en place un dispositif pour accompagner les femmes entrepreneurs, mais les femmes elles-mêmes, il faut le reconnaître, et bien avant même que l'État ne le fasse, ça c'est une vieille tradition au Sénégal, les femmes elles-mêmes, elles sont solidaires les unes des autres, elles s'organisent autour de ces tontines-là pour s'aider mutuellement à faire des affaires. Et aujourd'hui, vous avez des tontines qui brassent des millions au Sénégal. Donc ça, ce sont les deux types de collaboration que j'aimerais partager avec vous. Maintenant, la collaboration de pays à pays, j'aimerais vraiment aussi saluer les initiatives. Ce sont des signaux que le gouvernement du Canada est en train de faire actuellement. Vous savez, en 2020, le Premier ministre du Canada a fait une tournée en Afrique qui lui a permis d'aller en Éthiopie, au Sénégal et je pense au Kenya, peut-être que Immaculée pourra me confirmer cela, mais c'était une façon de dire à l'Afrique, le Canada est là, il faut que nous allions vers plus de business. Et nous pensons, nous, en tant qu'ambassadeurs, que c'est là où le Canada doit agir davantage aujourd'hui. Le Canada doit être plus proactif par rapport au financement et par rapport au commerce, au trade entre le Canada et l'Afrique, parce que nous savons qu'il y a beaucoup de potentialités qui sont en Afrique et pour lesquelles les investisseurs canadiens pourraient valablement venir en Afrique et faire des affaires dans un milieu et dans un environnement sûr. Je voudrais donc saluer cela. Il faut aussi rappeler que nous avons eu l'année dernière le symposium sur la croissance verte organisé par le Canada, l'Éthiopie et le Sénégal, qui était toujours encore une initiative pour porter davantage la dynamique de partenariat économique entre les deux continents. Et enfin, signaler que dernièrement, la semaine dernière, il y a 2 semaines, je pense, nous avons eu le virtuel trade tour de la ministre Mary Ng, qui est allée au Botswana, en Afrique du Sud et au Sénégal également, pour porter le message de la disponibilité du Canada quant à faire des affaires. Mais nous pensons, je pense moi particulièrement en tant qu'ambassadeur, que le Canada est encore timide dans cette dynamique à faire des affaires avec le continent africain. Je souhaiterais que des outils comme exportation, développement Canada, EDC, des outils comme la corporation commerciale canadienne qui sont là, qui sont mis en place par l'État du Canada, que ces outils-là servent davantage à accompagner les entrepreneurs canadiens sur le sol africain. En tout cas, je pense que nous sommes tous preneurs. Aujourd'hui, la collaboration, docteur, elle doit changer de bord. La coopération, c'est important. Nous savons que le Canada a une politique de développement international féministe que nous saluons, c'est très important. Mais nous pensons que là où le Canada et l'Afrique doivent aller, c'est vers beaucoup plus d'échanges commerciaux de part et d'autre. C'est en aidant les investisseurs, les hommes d'affaires, les gens d'affaires africains à tirer leur économie que le Canada va vraiment participer au développement de l'économie africaine.
Merci, Madam Ambassador. Thank you so much. I really see that you have a lot of points, and I'm really glad and excited because I know for sure that the audience will really enjoy the points, and I'm sure they've taken note of those points. I will quickly turn it over to Sabrina to provide like a 2-minute, a very brief summary of what the points that have been made for the benefit of our audience. And then I'll come back to you. I think we have one more question left. I would love to really take that one. Thank you. Sabrina, over to you.
Merci, Dr. Olou, et surtout merci Madame l'ambassadeur, votre Excellence, pour votre considération. Madame l'ambassadeur souligne que plusieurs types de collaboration existent.
In English, please.
Are you giving us the English? Yeah.
Je vais passer à la deuxième vitesse dans ma tête. So I'm saying that I would like to thank Dr. Orlu and thank also the Ambassador, Her Excellency, for her consideration. I'm saying that she highlighted 3 ways of collaboration that she deems very fit to answer your question, Dr. Olu. One is the first problem that women entrepreneurs encounter in Senegal is the access to banks. The second one is the interest rate. And the third one is that women in urban zones have an easier access than women that are in isolated areas. Therefore, there are more initiatives that have been spreading in Senegal to accompany these women. There is actually a delegation to fast entrepreneurship everywhere in Senegal. And one of the main initiatives of this program are nano credits. And they are basically accessible to these women so that they can start their business, but they are also progressive. So they go a little bit higher every time. And they come with a support, a mentorship, and education, and that is necessary. And to answer any critics about why only give a little amount of money and not a lot immediately, the answer is very simple, is that you cannot give that much money, a big amount of money, without the education that goes with it to make the most of it and to grow and thrive. Therefore, it's absolutely justified to go for microcredits or nano credits. She also highlighted something quite interesting about Senegalese culture, that there's a mutual help, and that help comes in community funds, basically between women, and that has been going on for a long time, where women will chip in and then help each other out, and it goes from very little funds to $1 million funds. And then there's the collaboration between countries to countries. Canada has been signaling their interest in investing in Senegal, and Justin Trudeau has been touring in 2020. There's been a symposium on green growth. There's been the virtual My Trade too, that has been carrying the message of Canada's availability to collaborate and to do trade with Senegal. However, these moves are still a little bit timid. They're a bit shy. They need to be followed by action. They need the tools to leverage trade and business between the two countries need to be activated to accompany Canadian entrepreneurs in Senegal.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you for the summary. And so we need to wrap up the panel now because we're running a bit late. So the last question, I'm just going to put the last question to all of you as a wrap up. As a wrap up, Canada just adopted, just introduced and launched the Canadian Digital Adoption Program in view of the new trends, emerging trends, evolving trends, but that has actually been fast tracked by this pandemic. So a lot of people said, oh yeah, the fourth industrial revolution is what we've been faced with over the years. But now I believe personally, and then of course I belong to that school of thought, that believes that nothing has really fast tracked the digital revolution than the pandemic itself. The fact that we were locked down, the fact that we had to go on Zoom, everyone, including our grannies and so on, from the remotest places across the nations. And so this digital revolution, you can see that Canada itself has given a lot of thought to it. $4 billion has been introduced as a grant that people need to apply for just to get educated on how to launch their e-commerce businesses and so on. And that's the theme of discussion today. As a wrap up, Your Excellencies, would you kindly share with us in 1 minute, very few words if you can, just to manage the time, what you think, what has been done by your country and what you think will drive the force in Africa? 1 minute each, and then we can wrap up. Thank you, Your Excellencies. We'll start with you, Madam Surya Otumani. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much, Dr. Olu. Can you hear me? Yes,
we can.
So you see, I mean, the passion, and you see the interest, and you see how much, I mean, we have to say for all the topics that you addressed this morning, and we really need a lot of time, more than the time that you are allowing to us today. I mean, to really talk and more on all those very, very interesting matter. So yes, for going back to your question, women entrepreneurship in Morocco is really an opportunity to gain access to income generating activities. I want also to refer to all the constraints, to all the obstacles, and to all the challenges that women are facing. I don't come back to that because Ruth mentioned it. My colleague also, Vivian, talk about all the obstacles that they are facing. And, there is also the socio-cultural and background that is also a problem. But I think that nowadays, within the current context of the world digital transformation, we can raise the question if the digitalization is another obstacle to women entrepreneurship, or is it on the opposite, one unique tool that will help women take a step further and be successful in the development of their businesses. We know how much the COVID pandemic severely impacted enterprises, especially those enterprises owned by women. And many of them could not, because they are so small, they could not benefited from the governmental financial and loans, or they could not benefited also from specific program that they were put in place to compensate the loss of incomes during the pandemic. Of course, in my country, there are multiple and various governmental institutional and banks program tailored for women entrepreneurs. These policies also include more and more digital component and based on fiscal exoneration, easing access to loan, training program, etc. But according to some recent surveys and studies, conducted in my country, women don't really benefit from them. And it seems that the reason, it's not specific to women, but to the world of business in general, because we know, I mean, all the challenges that the world of business is facing in especially all the increase in prices especially in raw material. So I know that the time is limited. I'm going to stop here. Thank you
so much, Your Excellency.
It was a pleasure to be here and to participate to this very inspiring panel.
Thank you. Thank you. We'd like to take one more thought from Immaculée Wambua. Thank you. The wrap up for 1 minute. Yeah.
1 minute.
Yes, if you can. What message do you have for women in this room, in the audience this afternoon?
1 minute, I agree
with
you.
In 1 minute. Thank you.
That the time was not enough, and maybe we will pursue you to get another forum where we can really discuss and get something together. Even a paper, that can be shared, maybe just to see and to understand where Africa is and how we want to go, especially now with the world becoming digital, as you are saying. Of course, the outbreak of COVID has been severe the world over, not only in Africa, but also the whole world. We have seen very negative impacts of economies in the world, and that have destroyed lives and also livelihoods. And this has been a lot traumatizing, especially for the women in Africa. And as we continue with this discussion, we have seen the obstacles. And what the women in Kenya, for example, have been doing is they have started this kind of what you call a merry-go-round. I think it is everywhere in most of the African countries, whereby they meet together and contribute money, which goes into a fund that can now then boost their businesses. Small businesses like food kiosks and baking, cakes and jewelry businesses. There's a lot to discuss in this forum. So the digitization of entrepreneurship is the way to go. And for the government of Kenya has also seen the biases that has come about towards women entrepreneurs, and has established what we are calling a Women Enterprise Fund. This is a semi-autonomous government agency that provides accessible and affordable credit to support women start or expand businesses for wealth and employment creation. So the governments are also looking and seeing these serious obstacles that have come up with COVID. And as we discuss, Dr. Olu, maybe we should also be aware of also climate change. Climate change as we discuss COVID, because climate change has really impacted on women entrepreneurs, and it is to be discussed as we discuss COVID. Yes.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for all those comments that you have made, because now we have run out of time, but definitely we're going to take you up on that again, and I'm sure we'll come back. Madam Ruth Masdozi, any final comments for 1 minute?
Yes, thank you. I'll make your life very easy. I am not going to make a big comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Firstly, we should learn to nurture the dreams of young women from an early age. We encourage them. We should use our offices to promote even access to funding where we have influence. We should teach them from a young age that they can go into business. Why I say that, I was educated at a time when we were told we should work for someone to be employed, but we educate them from a young age that they can be employers. And we should support women already in business, in small businesses, by buying their products and promoting their products among our own networks. I also want to quote from what the mayor said earlier on. I listened to her. She said, what can you do to break gender bias? What can we do to make sure that young women are not only welcomed at the table, someone said that earlier, but that they feel they belong to that table and they can contribute and they're taken seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's such a pleasure to have you all here. And we really thank you for all of those insights. So esteemed ladies in the room, that brings us to the end of this panel 4 today. And I'm just going to wrap it up also by thanking everyone that has been a part of this, all our speakers. And I'm sure I speak the minds of everyone in the room this afternoon when I say we've really had a great session. We had a few techie issues at the beginning, but I'm really glad that we were able to overcome that. And here we are this afternoon, not only celebrating you inspiring women, all of us in the room today, from all our audiences, from the audience and to all our esteemed speakers. We just really want to thank you. Particularly, we would like to say thank you to all our speakers. You've all been introduced, but then for all your excellencies on the, on this particular last panel, we really want to say thank you. We say thank you again also to the Honorable Greg Fergus, who opened with the opening keynote session. And I want to assure people in the audience that we're going to get the recorded part of that message across to all of you registered so that you can have access to that, because I do remember that we had a few techie hitches, at the beginning. And so for us, on behalf of our governing council at CASA Foundation, we're really delighted that you could all join us this afternoon. Thank you, warm thank you again, and full appreciation to the Honorable Rachel Valdez and also Helena Jackzy. We thank you. We thank you for making it a date with us. And to all our professors, from Professor Wendy Sukia to Professor Sadrin from TEP, and Michelle Gale from TD Bank, and all our panelists, Donna Walwyn, Bronwyn Warwick, and Surana Sandi, Candice Kopachor, all of you, we say thank you. Anisha Singh, and to the MC of the day, Ifeolu, we say thank you. And to the winners at the game, thank you for participating also. I'm sure we will be reaching out to you. Everyone is important, and that's why we're celebrating all of us on International Women's Day. We definitely will be coming back to you. Keep in mind a few words by Bonnie Crombie. Actions lead to change. Actions lead to change, and the steps that we take within our communities, the shared experiences, the knowledge that we build, these are the things that actually change communities for the better. And so we will encourage, and these are the notes I will leave with you today as we close, that we continue to engage, we keep the lines, the conversations going. There are still many opportunities to celebrate throughout this month, because it's actually indeed the Women's History Month. And so I would leave it on that note to say, let's keep engaging, let's keep the conversations going. The actions and the steps we take on a daily basis will help us build better communities. Ladies, have a wonderful day and keep well. Now we have come to the end of the forum today, and we look forward again to connecting with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.